Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our final day of coverage here at MUFON Symposium 2023 in Covington, Kentucky. We have with us as our first guest today, Irena Scott. She has an indomitable reputation in the world of UFO, UAP study, and is the co-author of the new book, Beyond a Reasonable Doubt, The Pascagoula Alien Abduction. I am so excited for the fact that this amazing case has just really popped back to the forefront of the UFO UAP field. Familiarize our audience a little bit, Irena, with your career and things that you have done in the field.
Well, my career is I've always been in science, and I was I worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency in satellite photography. And I also worked for the, I forget what it's called now, the charting center. I forget the name.
Yeah.
And I have a PhD in veterinary medicine from a veterinary school. I was a professor for a while.
Okay. And
toxicologist. So my career has been just in science.
Spanning, but within the world of science, within the world of scientific investigation, things like that, how did you come to the world of UFO UAP study, Irena?
Well, it started when I was a very tiny child. My sister and I, long before we heard of UFOs, had something flying around our room, and it behaved in a strange way.
Oh.
And it was like the room was dark. There was no storm going on. And it flew around like it knew where things were. The room was dark, but it knew where the furniture was, and it knew where the walls were. It didn't bump into anything. And it got close to us. And it also went up and circled a chandelier. And we both woke up at the same time when the thing was in there. We had no idea how it got in. And then we both became terrified at the same time and ran out of the room.
Wow. And is this a situation that y'all talked about throughout your life? Was it something that y'all just kind of ignored, as is so often the case?
At that time, people didn't talk about UFOs, but we didn't know it was a UFO. We never heard of UFOs, so we talked about it. And then we had a real long close encounter later when we were older that we didn't talk about. I was working for the DIA in satellite photography, so identifying aircraft, so I didn't exactly go around talking about it then.
Wow. And what was that like for you, the second experience?
They were both, the first one was just terrifying, even though I didn't know why I was scared. The second one, somebody tried to kill us during the sighting.
What?
And we're still confused about what went on. Why?
What was the situation that happened?
Well, we were on vacation. Last thing on our minds were UFOs. And we were heading out of Boston. And we were watching airplanes go into this small airport. There was this little, it wasn't a little, but something flying below where the airplanes were. It was just a steady white light and not blinking like airplane lights.
Yeah.
And we were arguing about what it was. And then we passed a woods, and there was a big ball of something almost on the ground. And the inside of the car turned green. And then we went on. And my sister, I was sort of arguing with her and saying this thing that we were seeing wasn't anything. And she started yelling at me to pull over because she said it was going to cross over the freeway. Yeah. And so finally, after she yelled enough, I did. And it did. And I changed my mind. It had a little red light and a little green light on both ends that didn't blink, and 7 big picture windows. And we argued. We looked at it for a while and thought, are these panels or windows? And we thought they were windows. It was nothing like a blimp, and I've got videos of blimps with lighted sides. It was nothing like that. And so I was in the DIA working in photography, and I had a Polaroid camera it was back a long time ago. I had a Polaroid camera with high-speed film, and so I found the film and got the camera loaded, And I thought this would just be an amazing picture because it'd prove UFOs exist. I could get the stereo and everything. And so this truck driver pulled over in front of us, came back, and asked what I was doing. And I pointed at it, and he turned the opposite way and said, I don't see anything. Then he turned to me again and said, what are you doing? And I pointed, this big thing was right there. And he turned the opposite way and said, I don't see anything. And then he kind of gestured like I was crazy and went back to his truck. And so, anyway, by that time, my sister had said in her later write-up that the thing seemed to get in a different place. And I didn't notice that, but it was. It was real close when I started talking to the truck driver, and it was a long ways away. But I still thought I could get a picture. And so I climbed a little hill to get off the freeway and took some pictures. And I didn't understand them at first, but later I was able to publish them in scientific literature. But I came back to the car, and we decided to go to another intersection, turn the car around, come back. And so this truck driver got right behind me and started chasing me. And he bore his bright lights down in my car so that I couldn't even see. And if I changed lanes, he changed lanes. If I slowed down or sped up, so did he. And finally, I decided, I thought he was going to kill us. And I said goodbye to my sister.
Yeah.
And finally, I decided what to do would be to go in the left-hand lane and find an exit and just all of a sudden swerve out, which is very dangerous and somebody coming up.
Yeah.
But I did it, and I think I got rid of him. And so we went back and followed it a while, but we couldn't catch up with it again. Very close.
Incredible. How did that experience, A, change you personally? B, did it change your mind scientifically on the topic?
No, because I'd had childhood sightings, which I finally found out what UFOs were.
Sure.
But I kept quiet about it.
Yeah.
I was in the UFO closet for a long time.
And that is understandable. With the modern conversation going on, a lot of people are coming out of that closet, Irena, and it's fantastic to see that their stories are being listened to. I have told no less than one handful of people over the last month and a half, go to MUFON. Go to MUFON, give them your report. I saw it 20 years ago. That doesn't matter. Like, your report 20 years later can confirm reports that happened when it happened.
Well, you don't expect to find too much, but like I had written up the next day the whole thing, except I hadn't put in the times. But like Bud Hopkins, an investigator, asked me, do you have missing time? And I said, I don't know. And so anyway, just last year, my sister found a letter she'd written to my mother that very day. And so we had 2 write-ups, and she gave the time on hers.
Awesome. And how were your pictures received? You said that you published them.
Yeah.
How were they received by the scientific community when you published them?
Well, at that time, I didn't say UFO. I said UAP. I mean, that was back a ways, so I didn't, But it was accepted and published.
Wow, that's remarkable. That is actually very interesting that it was even published in scientific journal and all that. Yeah. Now,
I could just see one light when I saw it with my eyes, but the Polaroid camera picked up 2 lights, and they weren't in synchrony. And so I said, this craft or whatever it is emitting light that's not in the visible spectrum.
Yeah, and that is one of the things that we talk about regularly on the show, is that we as humans see a very narrow band of the actual spectrum electromagnetic wise. Like, when you start looking at animals like even geese and some birds actively see magnetic fields to be able to guide themselves. So there's a whole panoply of spectrum out there that we are just shifted from by being in the middle, and it's remarkable to see a lot of the science really turning that way in the world of UFO UAP research.
Which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into how you got involved with the Pascagoula investigation.
Well, how I got involved was 2 ways. One was way back in October of 1973 when the Pascagoula happened, but I didn't know it. My mother called. She was in Ohio when I was in Missouri, which is 600 miles away. She said, "Did you hear that noise?" And I told her, "You must be crazy."
It's 600 miles away. What noise?
Yeah. And so I, really ribbed her and everything. And then she's a real skeptic. And several days later, she said there was just a huge UFO wave there, that people were hiding in their basements and keeping their kids in and everything, just like a war.
Wow.
And so I didn't pay too much attention to it for a number of years. And then one day I was in the library and I thought, maybe I can find the date of when she called. And I didn't expect to, because I didn't even remember when it was, but I thought it was October 73. I went in, pulled up a couple papers, and I found a newspaper article about it so I could date it. And it turned out that that was the same date as the Pascagoula abduction. And I had the help of some geologists at Ohio and wrote up a paper on that in the scientific journal. But then just several years ago, I was publishing under Philip Mantle, and the Pascagoula event happened in Mississippi, where they have an accent.
Yeah.
And he has an English accent, and so he wanted somebody from the United States to interview people.
Sure.
And so that's the second way I got in.
Wow. And what did you find out through those interviews? Let's get into a little bit of the case and some of the experience of Calvin Parker and Charlie.
Should I go into what happened to them?
Oh, please.
Okay. What happened was they were just two normal people. They had no interest in UFO. I think Charlie had told his son that UFOs don't exist. And they were just nothing, no interest or anything. And they, after their day of work, they decided to go fishing. And it was getting dark, and they were out on a pier fishing. And Calvin had a new car, and they'd pulled up to this beat-up old place with a no trespassing sign, and they had to walk a long ways through weeds and debris to get there. And he was afraid the police were going to get him. And he told Charles that if they did, he could go to jail because it was his idea to fish there.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, they were out fishing, and they saw this blue light. And they both thought, it's the police. And then this blue light came real fast. It was looked like an object, and it was levitating. It wasn't on the ground. And two things came out that had arms and a head and stuff like people, and grabbed Charles, and one grabbed Calvin and took him in to the craft. And what they remembered is that they were sort of scanned. That Charles had it was real bright inside, and they couldn't see anything, but this thing like an eye came out and looked at him and then circled around him. And Calvin said this thing like a deck of cards. Now you'd probably say like an iPhone came. It was like giving the impression that they were being scanned.
Sure.
And of course they were absolutely terrified because they thought they got injections and they couldn't move. They were paralyzed. And so then they were released and put back, and the thing went away. And so that was the basic event.
Yeah, I remember in the hypnosis tapes, them referring to hearing an injection.
Yeah.
Hearing the sound of something injecting them, and then they weren't able to move. And things went awry from there. From that point, it came. This is very much where a lot of the stories of probing, things like that, came from. And how many cases have there been of people being taken in this way, Irena?
There's some cases, but this was a really good one because there were two witnesses, and they reported immediately. A lot of the literature, somebody will just be hypnotized and remember it, not remember it consciously, remember it years later and not talk about it. Well, they reported it immediately. One of them wanted to report it, one of them didn't. But.
Yes. Yeah. Calvin kept his story to himself until literally just recently, within the last couple of years, as he's gotten older and kind of ailing in health a little, has decided that he needed to come forward and confirm Charlie's story, because Charlie went public almost immediately.
Yeah.
And Calvin was like, I want none of that. He was a very young man, just beginning his career. He didn't really want any of that, I guess, at the time, what would really be infamy.
Well, he was 18, and, he didn't want to go through life with everybody pointing at him. That's the crazy person.
Well, and that's just it. Like, we've had Kathleen Martin on the show numerous times, the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, and even she said her aunt told her at a very young age, like when she was a teen, this ever happens to you, you tell nobody. This will ruin your life. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what Calvin was afraid of, that it would ruin his life, especially in a small town like Pascagoula. In rural communities, when you're a shipyard worker, and how did that affect the rest of Calvin's life up until the point of releasing his story?
Well, they did. Calvin didn't want to report it, and Charlie did, and so finally, Charlie tried the Air Force, the Kessler Air Force Base, and they said, no way. And they told him to call the sheriff's department. Well, the sheriffs did an excellent investigation, just really good, considering, nobody investigated that. They questioned him separately, then they put him in a room together and questioned him, and then the man left and left him alone. And they had a hidden tape recorder, because the police didn't want, them to be hoaxing and make, look awful.
Yeah,
and
trying to catch them confirming a story together before they tell it.
Yeah, like they would be laughing and saying, we were... Yeah. Well, they were both terrified, and it showed very much in that secret tape. And so that showed that they believed that happened, that they were being honest. And so... then a number of people went investigated, and they took him later to Kessler Air Force Base, and they were questioned. They were questioned by doctors and all kinds of things. And everybody thought they were sincere, besides which they had the tape. But Charlie, he had been in the military, and he'd been in life-death situations, and he thought he could hold up to the harassment.
Yeah, he'd been to war.
But Calvin... he didn't want to spend his life being a freak. Yeah. And so he didn't want to say anything. And he didn't until just a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And after speaking with him how has coming out with his story changed him?
Well, I think it changed him for the better. I think he was holding it in all those years. Yeah. And finally he said something. And he was expecting a real bad reception. And I think they went to a funeral. And he always disguised his name. Well, he used visiting hours or something. He put his real name on. And people recognized him, because he would have been world famous. Yeah. And the people, instead of harassing him, expressed interest and concern. And I think that helped him. And then his wife and Philip Mantle both said, come out and say something. And it's improved his life and his wife's life, too.
That's fantastic. And that's really great and healing to hear for anybody out there that has had an experience, whether it's to the extent that Charlie and Calvin had one, or even just a sighting, Irena, like the ones that you had. They leave people in a state of stasis. It rocks your world. You don't really know whether to believe yourself. It's hard. Just about any experience with the paranormal, cryptids. I've talked to all kinds of people that have these experiences, and it is typically not fight, not flight. It's freeze. Yeah. They freeze, and from that point on, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to process the information. They don't know how to integrate their experience into their life. And that can affect people in a lot of ways.
Oh, Kelvin had a nervous breakdown, was hospitalized shortly afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. And it's it can be hard to even talk about that, you know, and to see the fact that he has come out so honestly about his experience and is sharing it is fantastic, especially in the climate that we're in right now. Sharing these experiences and the stories means a whole lot more than it used to. It's really brought a lot of people out who are experiencers, who have seen something, have been touched by something in many occasions. So it's fantastic and has really widened the world of UFO UAP research.
Well, I think if there's more witnesses, like there were two of them, like my sister and I, there were two of us.
Yeah.
When we went screaming to our parents, they said, we were lying, that wasn't true. But we hadn't even been talking to each other, and we both saw it, So it was true. We weren't dreaming.
Yeah, exactly. You were, and that was very much the same thing as the one, and I will still to this day just say UFO. I will not say alien. It was not a craft. It was not, from what I could tell, a solid object. It was an amorphous black blob that changed shape and moved through the sky, blocking things out. I saw it. My friend saw it. As did my other friend whose house we were at, as well as the autistic neighbor.
Wow.
And the next year, and granted, it was New Year's Eve. We'd had a few drinks, whatever. When we got together the next New Year's Eve at my buddy's house, and the neighbor that we went to high school with saw us, he was like, "Hey, guys, what's going on? You think we'll see a thing in the sky again this year?" And it was like,
yeah.
Wow, we weren't drunk.
Yeah.
Like, this gentleman had the phone numbers to all the public phones at the high schools locally memorized and would call them up at lunch, and like a memory like a hawk. He did not lose information once it went into his head. So it was the fact of like, wow, Ari saw that. We did not imagine that. My friend just wrote a story about it. But that's even been something that, by example, we've sat down and talked about it maybe twice since it happened. And that was almost 20 years ago that it happened, Irena. It's never driven a wedge between us like it has with so many people. But it's one of those, until recently, we may have separately told people stories, but whenever we've sat down for a drink and hung out, it's never been a topic of conversation between us, that night of experience, and what it may have done to either one of us, just how we think, how we believe. Once you have an experience, it changes you.
Yes,
it changes you.
You become more open-minded.
Absolutely, and that is exactly how it has been put to me by people who've had near-death experience, people who've had astral projection experience, things like that. Even UFO UAP encounters. It's the way it's been put to me is I didn't realize I was living in a box. And that there was a whole world outside of that box that I'm connected to that's there. Nobody ever told me I was in a box. And now there's no box anymore. And it's wild. And it is amazing. It really does open your mind, open your heart to a lot of new things. What are you looking at next, Irena?
Well, this took place in a public place, unlike most abductions, and there were a whole lot of other witnesses. And so we interviewed a lot of witnesses, and a lot of people had reported that day to the police. So anyway, what am I going to do? Yeah. I have another book coming up.
Awesome.
It's about aliens. It's called Aliens in Armageddon.
Okay.
And it's about how, maybe it's the end of the world, and maybe they want to influence us so we don't kill each other and things like that. Okay. So, and one of the questions I've been asking many of the researchers, because the theme of this year is
friend or foe.
Yeah.
Last year, it's friend or foe 2.0. Last year was friend or foe, and it was very much how has the media treated the UFO, UAP topic over the last 50 years since Roswell, things like that. And do they see it as friend or foe? Why the crazy switch suddenly to even using the term UFO denier?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, 5 years ago, you'd have been calling him Crazy Bob.
Yeah.
Now, this dude who didn't believe Bob is a UFO denier suddenly. And that switch, and now it's very much, how is the government looking at it? How is the populace looking at it? Are we looking at it as friend or foe? And the government is very much, at least right now, in the foe category. It seems like they are very worried about training ranges. They're very worried about public airspace, things like that. So where do you fall? Do you fall in the friend or foe category ultimately, Irena?
Both. I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
They're just, it happened.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't understand it. And that's it.
Yeah.
I had poltergeist experience right after the UFO sighting with my sister, too.
Really?
So, the whole conglomeration was pretty confusing, especially if I was working for the DIA, and I had this real high security clearance, CSI, like it's been in the news and everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and what was your poltergeist experience, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I came back to Washington, D.C., and it was late at night. I was supposed to bring back 2 coworkers from the DIA, and I don't know what happened, but I didn't get them. They were mad at me. But I could hear somebody walking around my room at night after dark, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And then I had a clock with an alarm, but it was very hard to set because the little knob was off, and it went off at 1:30, and I got up and thought it was morning. Then I realized it wasn't, and got scared to death and put a chair against the door and everything. And then my alarm went off at 1:30, 2:30, 3:30, 4:30, I think 5:30, just set exactly, precisely, which I couldn't do.
Wow.
And then I'd never heard of poltergeist. I was just sitting there thinking, am I going to lose my job if I went crazy? And then my toothbrush just flung across the room and hit the wall. And then everything went to normal, and, I went to work. And I wasn't
Any other
crazy.
Instances after that? That was just an isolated instance?
It was right after the UFO sighting.
Wow. That's interesting because, many is the case that a UFO experiencer does experience other things that are paranormal, be it cryptid sightings, poltergeist activity, ghost sightings. It's a phenomenal topic, the idea that these worlds cross over as far as these topics. And it's been interesting to see that really coming to the forefront as well. Dr. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
We met last night, and it was such a pleasure to sit and talk with you, and I'm so glad that we got to have you on the show. I can't wait to have Philip Mantle on in a few weeks, actually.
Great.
So it's going to be awesome. Look there at the camera. Let everybody know where they can go to find your work, where they can go to keep up with you, and all of your research.
Here's my book. It's with Philip Mantle. It's on Amazon.com. And I have a website, irenascott.com.
Okay.
And you can just punch any of the books, and it goes right to Amazon. And
awesome.
You can find it.
Awesome. That's so fantastic. Once again, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. While you are online checking out everything at irenascott.com, make sure to stop on by curiousrealm.com. That is where you can like, follow, and subscribe to the show. That is where you can find our bookstore, curiousrealm.com/store, where you can find not only Beyond Reasonable Doubt, the Pascagoula alien abduction, but all of the books by our guests, as well as equipment that we talk about on the show, things like that. Stay tuned through these commercial breaks, everybody. We will be right back with our continuing coverage of the final day here at MUFON Symposium 2023 in Covington, Kentucky, right after this. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to our continuing coverage of Day 3 of MUFON Symposium here in Covington, Kentucky. We are very, very happy to welcome Thiago Ticchetti.
Ticchetti.
Oh, Ticchetti. From Brazil. From MUFON, Brazil. A, how was your trip in? Was it good?
It was fantastic.
Great. Awesome. B, how did you get into ufology to begin with? Because, of course, there is a rich, long history of UFOs and UFO sightings in Brazil.
Yes, I always say that I was born with ufology in my blood. Somehow, I when I was a kid, I just liked to read comic books, superhero comic books, and the UFO magazines.
Okay.
Since I started to read. And I started to research when I was 19 years old, and I never stopped. It's almost 30 years.
Wow. Awesome. And how did you first become involved with MUFON?
Oh, it was almost 10 years ago. A.J. Jever is an editor of the Revista UFO magazine who passed away last year. And I am his co-editor of the magazine, and he invited me to be his assistant, MUFON assistant in Brazil.
Oh, wow.
And then when he never left the MUFON, but became emeritus on MUFON, and I got national director in MUFON in Brazil.
Awesome. And how has that experience been for you?
Fantastic. Learned so much with Bob, with Steve Hughes, with David McDonald. So for me, it's the way so I can learn and trying to teach people in Brazil that want to become a MUFON associate or a MUFON member or a MUFON field investigator.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, a rich, long history of UFOs and ufology in Brazil. Let's get into a few recent cases, recent sightings that have happened in the area.
Yeah, we had in 2022, 2023, we had a UFO wave in Brazil. Several pilots of different air companies saw and recorded by phone our UFOs in the skies of 4 states: Rio Grande do Sul, São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and Santa Catarina.
Oh, wow.
They saw UFOs. And they recorded that conversation with the tower in the ground. And the tower said, "Oh, we cannot see nothing. And sometimes we can see it as you." And the pilot said, "Well, that's not another airplane in the area. And we cannot see it."
Oh, wow.
We cannot see it, but we can see it on your radar. And one of the film that was made shows a huge ball of light make a movement that no airplane can do it, nor nothing can do it. The Starlink is impossible to do that. And we investigated, and the Brazilian Air Force investigated because they were making a training exercise, then same area in same days, but in different routes. And they investigated the conclusions. We don't know what it was.
Wow. And that has been here recently in the whistleblower testimony that just happened with Grush here in the United States. The whole theme of this year is Friend or Foe 2.0, and very much our government, at least in the last few hearings, has definitely taken the foe aspect and said, like, this is a threat to our training ranges. This is a threat to civilian aircraft. We need to find out what is going on in our skies. And if that is the impetus for UFO investigation, awesome. That's how I feel about it. Yeah. Like, hey, if we have to use that end to bring UFO and UAP research to the forefront, okay. I'm great with that. But I guess how does the Brazilian military feel about the UAP threat?
Yeah.
Do they see it as a threat?
They don't see it as a threat because the Brazilian military doesn't pay much attention for that.
Okay.
We have reports, and the pilot, he has the right or not to report what he sees. If he reports, he has to make a testimony, an investigation of the episode. But they prefer not to do it because they can ruin his career.
Yeah.
And but the military did well. In Brazil, we have a lot of problems, and the UFO is not a problem that they want to get involved in.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. We have much more pressing issues going on.
Yes.
That is absolutely true.
So, but we know that they got testimonies from pilots. We know that they do not investigate, but they keep the secret of the files. We have several cases, important cases in Brazil, that they keep the files secret. And we in Brazil, we are pushing them to reveal, to disclosure these cases, these documents.
Yeah.
Because we have the right to know.
Well, absolutely. I mean, number one, you are paying for the documents to be made. So, yeah, I mean, that's very much the way that we look at it here in the States, is the fact of that is our information. Much like anything from NASA, you can go online, you can find it. It's all there. Because we are paying for that through our tax dollars.
The same thing.
And very much the same situation. Do you guys in Brazil find more reports coming from cities or country?
Cities? Yeah, cities. Large cities. But 95% can be explained. And the most interesting cases come from the inter-country of Brazil. That remote areas.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like, when you start getting people who, like, they are near an airport, and there's plenty of land in Brazil that is undeveloped, very rural. And when you start getting reports from there. And
for them, that see a strange light in the sky is normal. Happen every day. And when you go there and ask, well, did you see something strange? No, I just see a car flying.
Yeah.
Car flying.
Yeah.
Car doesn't fly. Oh, it's the size of a car. It's a big light. The shape
see
of a
them all
car.
the time. Nothing strange.
Why don't? Well, so every day is there. So they even report it because it's routine.
Wow. And that's what I mean by long and storied history, because these stories have gone back for generations in many of these villages, and sightings have gone back for generations.
Yes. Brazil has a history of UFO sightings. We can associate it, our culture with the Indians' culture in Brazil, native culture, with sighting of UFOs, the sight of not human beings. Because they are in their culture. We have the gold mother. Is a ball of light. They came out of the lagoons and rivers and chase the people.
Oh.
Gold mother.
Interesting.
What is that?
Interesting.
It's a ball of light.
Yeah.
So it is in the culture of Brazil, in the folklore of Brazil.
Yeah, and that's USO. That's underwater submerged object.
It's perfect.
So, yeah.
So we have this since Brazil was discovered. And so far, as far as I know, Brazil has more than 1,000 of sightings every year.
Wow.
We can explain the most of them.
Oh,
but
sure.
1,000 of sightings, something
that's a lot. That's a lot.
It is.
And once again, to cull through that information, to go through vet witnesses, things like that. What is some of your process with that when it comes to taking in a witness statement and really vetting the person as far as, can we believe their statement to move an investigation forward?
Yeah, first, I got this reporting I got from CMS MUFON, and I got from my personal social web and the social links media. And, when I got from email, I asked them, go to MUFON website, report it. I take care of it. But there are so many reports that I cannot take it. And Brazil is big.
Yeah.
The reports came from Acre State, is in north of Brazil, the south of Brazil. And I tried to get help from another ufologist in Brazil. I got this report, can you check for me? And they go and check for me. But it's very difficult.
Yeah. How many investigators do you have in Brazil?
MUFON? Just me.
What?
Just me. MUFON, just me. But we have the Revista UFO magazine. I have many friends, ufologists that help me.
Sure. There's a large network of ufologists.
I do have a network.
But wow, you are the sole MUFON representative in Brazil.
I told Dave that Brazil is going to win the prize of the best national.
If that's not the best volunteer, I don't know what is, Thiago. You got a whole country.
Yes,
man.
The language is the great barrier, and of course the dollar and the real comparison.
Yeah.
The money. Dollar is much expensive to the real.
Yeah.
The Brazilian real. But I'm trying to get more people involved, and I'm thinking I'm going to get it. At least 2, 3, 4 more people. They're going to help a lot.
Yeah. Well, and especially in a country like Brazil, where you have numerous regional dialects, there's kind of a mother language, but numerous regional dialects of language, things like that. It makes it much harder to carry on an investigation across the country.
Brazil, we all speak Portuguese. The dialect is not just accent. It's the same here in the United States.
Okay.
Texas have an accent. Florida has an accent. But we have also we have the Indian people.
Yes,
They
exactly.
speak their language. Some speak Portuguese, of course, but they speak their language. And it's very difficult to get there because they live in a reservation that no one can go there without permission.
Yep.
So we cannot go there in the research. We have to ask the federal police in Brazil to go there. And they have many sightings.
Wow.
But it's normal for them.
Yeah. Once again, for them, it's not strange. Which is strange for us.
Yes.
That it's such a point of normalcy and been happening so long for them that it's just normalized. Now, there have been some wild reports coming out of Peru lately, Thiago. Face peelers, wild stuff, like to the point that the military has gotten involved. Have there ever been any cases similar to that in Brazil where aliens have come into a village or anything like that?
Yeah, we had that in 1977, the plate operation, where many UFOs have been attacked people, sucking their blood, the iron from that blood, because the people that got shot by beam of light, they lost iron from the blood, so they got anemia.
Wow.
It was 97.7. And the Brazilian Air Force investigated. 2 teams of official militaries investigated from 77 to 78 and then stopped it. And as far as we know, the United States came and tried and keep the investigation until 1982. And but recently we had a few cases that happened in the boundary of Brazil and Peru, that aliens and spaceships are scaring Indians in Brazil and Peru, and now we have this in Peru. But this area between Brazil, Peru, Colombia is an area very, very dangerous area because there are drug dealers. We have miners, illegal miners, excavation. We have people that steal Indians to get the organs.
Yeah.
So it's very. That's why I think
grave and tomb robbing, all kinds of things.
So that's in my opinion, that's why the military are there in Peru, because the situation is getting out of control.
Yeah.
But you have to investigate it.
Yeah.
People saw beings flying with boots like Iron Man.
Yeah.
What technology is that?
Yeah, exactly. And even the attacks that have been reported.
Yes.
Really fantastical, but these people went to the hospital with those actual injuries. So,
That's why they have to investigate. In Brazil, we had many years ago, not so many, 4 or 5 years ago, we had a case that 3 Indians were hunting in the jungle and they saw a UFO. And they shot at the UFO. And the UFO just shoot a laser beam in the Indian, and the Indian just fell out. And the two other Indians ran away. And then they come back to rescue the other one. And the other one was unconscious and got disease and got lazy for days.
Wow.
It happened in Brazil.
Wow.
So there are still strange things happen in Brazil right now. And we cannot, and we don't know the most part of it.
And do most of these really strange cases like that happen more in the rural areas than in the city?
Much more.
Interesting.
In remote areas, because, well, north of Brazil is big. It's in the middle of it's a jungle.
Yeah.
The rainforest. And you have a city, the nearby city is 200, 300 kilometers far away.
Yeah.
So to get information there, you have to take a boat. You cannot get by car or airplane. You have to take a boat or helicopter.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. The people take a boat or a helicopter to go to nearby, police station or federal police station we have been attacked by...
Yeah.
They would not do that.
Yeah, well,
they try to defend themselves.
Well, and also the fact of when you're living rurally and in the country, especially in a country like Brazil, like you got better things to do than to take a day-long trip one way.
Two days,
to go report something. Like you got crops to tend, you got animals to tend. You're more worried about surviving and living than you are about making it to a MUFON headquarters to do a report.
That's it. And it's amazing because when you go there to investigate, and when I travel on vacation with my family, we got the northeast of Brazil, and I always ask the people that live there, have you seen something, a flying saucer? No, I never saw a flying saucer. I saw a light the size of a bus passing by. It's normal.
Yeah.
And if you dig, you'll find it. If you ask, they're gonna say to you, I never see, but my mother saw, my brother saw, my sister saw, my father saw, my grandmother.
Yeah.
Everybody saw something.
And once again, very generational in the rural areas of the country. And kind of like I bring up all the time with crop circles. Sure, there have been many that have been proven to be fake. But the ones from the 1500s that are reported, like, they had better things to do than to destroy half a crop of wheat. Like they were worried about not dying from the Black Plague and eating and staying warm. When you get reports from people out in the middle of the rural areas, things like that, where once again their livelihood is their crop, their livelihood is their animals, they have zero vested interest.
Yes.
In making a false report.
Of course.
And destroying crop to say, like, look, this thing came and killed my crops. As opposed to somebody in the city who may be looking for their 5 minutes of fame or maybe looking for some attention.
You were talking about crop cycle. We never had a crop cycle in Brazil since 2008. 2008 we had we had a crop cycle. We call in Brazil agroglyphos.
Okay.
The same crop cycle. And we had in 2008, 2011, 2012, 2014. I think the last one was 2017.
Oh, wow. So not too long ago then.
No, not too long.
Yeah.
Some people trying to do the same and easily solve it. But this that happened in Ipuaçu, we never got the solution. And we ask people, if you do that, do again. But you have to do at night.
Yeah.
Without any noise.
No lights.
Yeah. No stepping grass.
Mm-hmm.
The grass must be folded, not broken.
Yeah. And even when you start getting...
Nobody could do that.
Yeah, precisely. And when
is human construction. Okay, do it.
Yeah. Feel free.
Where the person that did it?
Yeah.
Oh, I did it. Okay.
And that's just it. The verifiable crop circles, they have blown nodules like they have been microwaved in a microwave oven. They have genetic change to the crop. All kinds of things. The soil has changed.
Let's sterilize it.
Yeah.
Do that. If you do that,
yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
But nobody never appeared. Oh, that two old guys back in the 80s, the 70s.
Exactly.
I was using a
board and a rope.
Yeah.
No. And you can do some really cool things. Don't get me wrong, with a stick in the ground and
yes.
measured out rope to get different size circles. It's not rocket math to do that.
Yes.
But once again, the characteristics of a true crop circle and what happens to the crop and the ground underneath it and magnetic fields, things like that, you ain't faking that. You ain't faking that.
That's right.
And-
That's right. And we had in Brazil, and I think when people said, "Oh, so human construction," okay, so do it.
Yeah.
Or
Repeat it.
Repeat it. Yeah.
Yeah. And now, what are you looking for the future of research in Brazil?
Well, I'm not saying I'm not optimistic or skeptics, but I think it's Brazil. What happens in Brazil is going to follow what happens in the rest of the world, mainly in the United States. If the United States open the files, we're going to be a very pressure in Brazil, to open the files. But we are working as a commission of Brazilian UFOlogist, which I'm president. We are trying through the laws. We have a Freedom of Information Act. We have the kind of law in Brazil as well. Through that, we are trying to get the documents from the Virginia case. And I think that once we get the first report through that law, it's gonna be an open gate.
Yeah.
We just have to have one success.
Yep.
If I have one success, the gate's open.
That's it.
So the future depends on it.
Yeah.
Because the military can always say, we don't have it. And if the government agree with the military,
yeah,
we have no escape.
Well, and that's just it. December 17th, 2017 was it here in the United States when Lou Elizondo first went on CNN and said, check out these 2 videos, folks.
That's it.
Whether you like Lou Elizondo, whether you trust his career, his creds, even if you trust or distrust the 2 videos, because, of course, like the NASA panel kind of ripped apart the Go Fast video pretty well with the trigonometry and like, oh, look, everything we need is right here on the screen. The azimuth of the camera, the distance, like it's a 40-foot object going 40 miles an hour.
Yes.
It was great to see that. But there's a huge amount of anomaly, 3 to 5% range. That's a big amount. The analogy I make all the time is I would never pay somebody for 95% of a wall.
Really?
I don't think I would have passed chemistry if I came in and said, here's a 95% remainder. Well, where's the other 5%?
Yes.
Did it go to solution, gas?
Yes.
Where's your math?
That's it.
And that's just it. It's great to see science finally stepping forward, saying we have been horribly, I guess the way that they put it was, we have been irresponsible with our responsibility. We have been confirming what we know and ignoring the 4 to 5% anomaly, which is our job to look at.
That's it.
Science.
That's it.
So.
The science. We have sites that just now. I disagree with what Avloab said. Okay, but check it out.
Yeah,
check it out.
Well, at least explore the hypothesis.
Yes. Science is hypothesis.
Well, and that was honestly what I loved most about, and a lot of people have a problem with the NHI, the non-human intelligence that Grush referred to in his testimony. I personally love the concept because as soon as you say it's alien, you've put it in a box no different than the scientists who said it's not alien.
That's it.
Like we've got a researcher right over here, Dr. Michael Masters, that we should be talking to today. His whole concept is it may be time shifted. We may be looking at people from the future who are coming back trying to fix a problem. We may be looking at people from an adjunct Earth in another dimension, in a parallel reality.
Maybe we have all of this.
Every bit of it. Exactly. So to say it's just extraterrestrial is very minimalizing.
That's why they changed the UFO to UAP.
Yeah.
They changed it because our mind, UFO, extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
It's not.
Precisely.
It's unidentified.
Precisely. It became very much Kleenex.
Yes,
that's it. It's just a catch-all term for everything that's in a box that you wipe your nose with.
It's like the copy machine in Brazil we call Xerox.
Yeah,
the machine is built by that's Xerox.
Yeah,
in Brazil we call Xerox.
Yeah.
The same, all the machines, Xerox.
Doesn't matter who. It's a Xerox machine.
Yes,
yeah, exactly. And we tend to do that. And yes, UFO became a catch-all bin. for various phenomenon. I mean, even right here, I got a great book from the MUFON Library, Strange Phenomenon.
Great.
Dude, these things go back to the 1700s. Talking about ball lightning, things like that.
Jacques Vallejo, the Magonia.
Yeah.
His book was the science from many, many years ago.
Yeah, yeah. So these are things that we've been looking into since science became science. And we are just now getting to a point of burgeoning on some answers. And it's really exciting. It's really great to see. And I will pray for you daily, Thiago, the fact that you are the lone MUFON investigator in Brazil. Wow.
I have more. I have a help from Fernanda from MUFON Canada. She's Brazilian, but living in Canada. She's helped me. But I get more people in Brazil.
That's it. That's it. Exactly. And let everybody know where they can go to get a hold of you if they are in Brazil. We have quite a few listeners in that area, things like that. So let them know where they can go to get a hold of you, if they need to give a report, where they can go to volunteer, where they can go to help out. They can
go to MUFON website, MUFON, and you can. The MUFON website is now so good that if you are in Brazil, if you put you at MUFON site, it translates to Portuguese automatically.
Epic.
So epic. you can see it. You can find me there. You can find me in my social media, Thiago Ticchetti. And can send me an email, no problem at all. I'm going to answer it. I just want to report it officially at MUFON because it's the best way to investigate.
That's right.
There's a database.
That's it. That's it. They have had a unified intake process since 1969.
And all the questions that are going to ask are in the formulary of the CMS. So it's easier.
Exactly. It's a very forensic process.
Keep touch with me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, YouTube, everything.
I will definitely be following and keeping up with things. Thank you so much for your time today during this very busy symposium. While you are online checking out all of the work of MUFON Brazil and Thiago, make sure to stop on by CuriousRealm.com. That is the website. That's where you can like, follow, subscribe, share. That's where you can find our experiencer page, CuriousRealm.com/story. If you have a story of extraterrestrial or UFO, UAP experience, if you have had an encounter with cryptids, if you have had an encounter with the paranormal, let us know. Share your pictures, videos, audio with us, and we will present it to our investigators and researchers to see if we can get you some answers. Stay tuned through these commercial breaks. We'll be right back with our continuing final day of coverage here at MUFON Symposium 2023, right after this. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our continuing coverage of Day 3 of MUFON Symposium here in Covington, Kentucky. We have with us our amazing friend, Sev Tok, who is one of the leads of the MUFON Experiencer Resource Team, an experiencer herself. So how have you been enjoying MUFON Symposium this year, Sev?
It's wonderful. Not only am I learning a lot knowledge-wise, 3D-wise, but there's some connections that are being made with people that on a really high spiritual level.
It's been great.
I feel like I'm buzzing.
Yeah. Yeah, the energy around the last couple days has really been intensely awesome. Mm-hmm. It really has been. Hearing people swap and share stories, swap and share data, talking after the speakers, things like that.
It's been the connections that you're making with the people around.
Oh, absolutely.
Here.
It's been fantastic.
It's like from the heart.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
It's great. And that is one of the things that I love about this community is it is so beautifully accepting of people, their stories, their experience. Because that is where it starts with MUFON, is with an experiencer report, with tell us about your experience. How did your experience come to you, Sev?
Which one?
Your first experience.
When I was 10.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that was my first experience, but it's my first conscious experience from 10 to 12. And I was living in a suburb of D.C., Washington, D.C. And at night, I would find myself outside looking up, and there would be a spaceship coming. And each time it came from a different direction. And it happened so many times that I lost count. And it would come, and it would hover right over my head. and it was so big that I couldn't see the stars. And I was so happy, so happy, so happy, so happy, because it was like I was seeing a relative.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And then it would land, and stairs would descend, and this being would come down, and he looked more human than not. Had dark hair, a dark outfit. Mm-hmm. His ears were just slightly elongated, but not like Spock. And he was checking up on me.
Interesting. And that was the first conscious visit that you remember. You had numerous visits through your childhood.
Yes. That's the first one I remember.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, how did it go for you from experience like that to the opposite side of the experiencer coin, where fear came into it?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because I didn't fear that being.
Yeah, exactly.
And after he visited me for 2 years, there was a final visit, and this time it was with a bunch of other kids. And we were watching him go away, and we were really sad because we knew we weren't going to see him anymore. And I heard in my head, okay, it's time to do your work. And as a 12-year-old, I had no idea what that meant. And when I would pop back into my bedroom, I was really confused because my bedroom and my life there felt fake. And my relationship with my space brother felt real. And then I would just tell myself, just forget about it and just get dressed and go to 5th grade.
Yeah,
and
just
try
move
and
on.
be normal.
How'd that work out for you?
Oh, well, it caused decades of unhappiness and issues and problems.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that is the experiencer story that I hear very frequently, is that the trying to push the experience away tends to lead people down a different path.
Yeah. So to answer your question, how did it flip from being a pleasant experience to one where I was fearful? The first time I was afraid, really, was the first time I saw gray.
Okay.
Because they can be scary, because they don't, the shorter ones, the littlest ones, they don't emit emotion. So that's scary for us.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
And so that's when my fear started.
Okay.
But I've lost that fear. I see now they were helping me.
Okay. Yeah, and we've talked about that numerous times on the show, the catharsis that you went through and the point of peace that you came to with your experience. I think that is such an important reason why you are a part of the Experiencer Resource Team. Let's get into the ERT a little bit and their involvement with MUFON cases.
Well, the ERT stands for the Experiencer Resource Team, and there's about 70, 75 of us around the world, and we deal only with people who've made direct contact with an ET or non-human intelligence. And it's really amazing work.
Yeah.
Because we are privileged enough to get the information that the ETs are giving these people, and information, scientific information, information about the hybridization program, information about self-empowerment and spirituality, information about mankind's possible fate. And also information on how to strengthen your psi abilities or your psychic abilities. And so we are privy to this amazing information, and this information is coming to help us individually and to help mankind.
Yeah, yeah, and the numerous messages that have been received by experiencers, it's interesting to see the many unified messages that are out there. Everybody gets a different experience, but so many of the messages that they come back with are unified in their source. Where do you guys, as the Experiencer Resource Team, begin with gathering that information with somebody? How do you begin making them comfortable enough to share that very intricate and detailed information about what an ET may have shared with them?
Well, those of us who are in the ERT are experienced. We're specialized in dealing with this. And the person goes to the MUFON.com, someone who's made ET contact, and clicks on this red button in the upper right-hand corner, and then fills out a questionnaire. And then our director, Dr. George Medich, gets the questionnaire, and then he assigns it to someone. And then when I get a case, I email the person introducing myself, commenting on their story, asking them a few questions, and then when they respond, then I take it a little further and ask them if they want to talk.
Okay.
And they almost always want to talk via Zoom or telephone.
Okay. And now, y'all had a huge panel the other morning with the ERT. How did that go?
It was wonderful. Oh my gosh, I'm still glowing from it. Yeah, the room was packed, and I gave a talk, and then we had Yvonne Smith and Earl Grey and Dr. George Medich on a panel, and we had a Q&A for an hour and a half, and it was fantastic. Fantastic. And I shared stories about 3 ERT cases that I investigated from North Carolina, because I live in North Carolina. And one of them really sticks out to me. It's by a young lady who was shown an image by the Greys. She was shown an image of Earth from a distance. And on Earth were these little points of like twinkling lights, white light. And they were all connected by a grid. And the Greys told her, every time a human being has a spiritual awakening, they twinkle, and we can see them.
Interesting.
Because their vibration rises so high that it goes above the lower vibratory energy that surrounds Earth, and then they can see them. And they say that it's important for us to so-called awaken, or to raise our frequency and our vibration, to help each other and to help mankind.
Wow.
And to also one day reconnect with our galactic brothers and sisters. That's the whole point of why they're communicating with us, so we can re-enter that whole world.
Yeah, precisely.
Because we live in a neighborhood and we don't realize it.
Yep. And the example I've been giving on the show this weekend is so many experiencers have told me that after their experience, it was like they were pulled out of a box. And they never realized that they were living life inside of this box before. It was such a limited view of what was outside of that box until they were removed from it. And it opened them up to a whole new world of possibilities, a whole new way to live life, a whole new way to connect with the world around them.
Yes, it broadens your perspective.
Yeah.
And it also strengthens your psychic abilities. You become more intuitive. And when you become more intuitive, it's easier to make decisions. It's easier to make the right decisions. It's easier to meet the right people. It's easier to be successful and happier and healthier and all of that.
Yeah.
When
Precisely.
you're able to plug into this high frequency information that floats around us and then use it to your individual benefit and to our collective benefit.
Yeah, precisely. And understanding your place within that system. You know, I consider it kind of like a molecule myself, and being an atom.
That's a good analogy.
If I remove myself, that molecule is totally different now. It's totally different.
I like it.
And we are very much the same way. We attract and repel each other and build beautiful things together, you know, but unless it's a cooperation between 2 parts of hydrogen and 1 part of oxygen, we have zero ocean. There has to be a cooperation between those things and an agreement
And alignment.
that this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We're going to make water now. You know? If we invited carbon into the mix, we'd have sugar pretty quick, you know? Like, so yeah, we have to consider what we are surrounding ourselves by, and even experiencers, what you are surrounding yourself by and letting yourself be influenced by, because there are numerous people out there, sadly, Sev, who want to try to make people's revelatory experiences negative. I saw that a couple times, and I'm not too partial to it. I don't understand where that comes from. I find that a hard mentality to accept.
Fear.
Yeah,
Just
I think
afraid
so.
of the truth.
Yeah. And you know, we've talked about that so many times, not only being afraid of the truth, but that want of confirmation that we have in society and personally, you know, of even when you're an experiencer, just to find another experiencer to confirm the fact that you're not crazy.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
That's so important.
and that is why I recommend everybody. Like, I have a very good friend and guest who comes on the show, Father James Cloud. He witnessed something in 1973 in Michigan when he was a kid, and just recently made his MUFON report, like within the last year.
That is happening a lot. We're getting a lot of historic cases from 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Because of the congressional hearings. And so now people are like, oh, I'm going to contact you because now it's on TV. And
A lot of the
I'm not
stigma
afraid
has been
anymore.
dropped. A lot of the stigma has been dropped, and it's been beautiful to see that, and beautiful to see the number of people that are coming forward with their experiences. You know, I mean, even we had Irena Scott on earlier talking about the Pascagoula case. It wasn't until the last couple of years that Calvin Parker came forward with his side of the story. You know, that's been since like 1973 and affected his life, all kinds of things. So, yeah, the conversation has changed people's approach to it and changed people's acceptance of even what has happened in their own life. So,
Yes. And it's a wonderful thing
oh, absolutely.
because this is a very historic moment.
Yeah.
And so what are we going to do with it?
And
Which way are we going to go?
that's really the big tater question, you know, because now we got a potato and it's baked and it's kind of hot. What are we going to do with it now? You know, and with everything happening in the field of research right now, with the science literally changing, it's remarkable to see just since the first congressional hearings, the path of technology that has come out. Things like the Lockheed Martin nuclear reactor that fits inside of an F-16, stuff like that, where it's like, curious. They've said for years it would take the power of a nuclear reactor to make physics happen like that. Well, we have it. So yeah, last year was the big question: friend or foe 1.0. How has the media treated things? And now it's friend or foe 2.0. How are we treating it? How are we accepting it in society? And how is the government putting a lens of focus on things? And they definitely in the last hearings came out with the fact of, yes, we have some concerning issues with our training airspace. We have some concerning issues with civilian airspace, things like that. Where do you fall in the question of friend or foe, Sev?
Oh, friend. Friend. They've been friends to me.
Yeah.
So I can just speak from my own personal experience, but they've changed my life for the better.
Well, and that's even after your fearful experience and going through and processing that yourself with the help of good folks like Kathleen Barden and everything else to come to a point of realization that you were viewing that through a very specific lens in your life.
Yeah, because I used to think there were foes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
And
mean,
so I completely changed.
well, you came back with physical marks on your body, things like that.
That's
so
what did it.
it's
That's what I needed to wake up.
wow.
Because I was in denial for 40 years over everything that happened
Wow.
to me. Every mark I had on my body, I would just either ignore or try and explain away. The lights, I could feel beings in my room touching me, everything. I just ignored everything. But those X's made me say to myself, oh no, I cannot ignore this, which means everything that's been happening to me for 40 years is real. And it's like, what? How can I deal with that? And so I went into this existential crisis
Yeah.
because I didn't know who I was anymore. And I didn't know who we were as a human collective. I didn't know who we were and what we were doing. Where
Yeah.
did we come from? And why am I talking to aliens in the middle of the night? And I didn't know anything.
Oh, yeah. And it's enough to shake your whole world foundation. It's enough to either strengthen or destroy your faith in higher powers, other things.
And then you have no one to talk to about it. And then you're trying to go to work and, trying to be a good mother, trying to be a good father. You're just trying to be a good person. But in the same time, in the back of your head, you're like freaking out.
Yeah.
And it's a private freak out, which is the worst.
Yeah. It's not one that you can share over coffee with a friend, things like that. And unfortunately now you have the network of friends to be able to share that with. Yeah. You have a network of people, other experiencers that you can go to and talk about your experience, even if something else pops up that may be bugging you about it. And that's a beautiful thing. That's what I love about the ERT, is the fact that, yes, MUFON is about the nuts and bolts. They're about the science of UFO, UAP study. But it starts with a statement, and it starts with an experience. And until proven otherwise, they will follow the trail of your experience. And if it comes to the point of, we think you need to talk to somebody on the Experiencer Resource Team, that is where they send you. If it's the part of, we think that there's enough from your witness statement and there's enough other evidence that corroborates that we think we need to send a STAR team out to get soil samples, radiological samples, things like that. There are different branches of MUFON that are there not only for the intake process, but for the sifting of that information and how to disseminate that information and treat each case individually. It's great.
Also in the ERT, we're very different from field investigators in that we're not really investigating.
No.
And we're not determining whether someone's abduction is real or not.
Nope.
That is not our role. Our role is to listen.
That's right.
And offer guidance. And if you need some extra help from a regression therapist or a psychologist.
A Bud Hopkins or someone like that.
We have vetted people that we can suggest to you.
Yeah, good
and
folks
so
like
that's
Yvonne Smith.
Yeah, so if anyone's afraid of telling us about our ET contact because they think we're going to prove them wrong, we do not do that.
Yeah.
We do not judge.
Yeah. That is the beautiful, beautiful thing is I have, amongst the community that is here, that is MUFON, I have not seen a single point of judgment amongst any person from MUFON about anybody's story, about anybody's encounter, about anybody's sighting.
Yeah.
And that is the beautiful thing.
And it's refreshing because there's so much judgment in our society. It's nothing but judgment.
Yeah.
It's how we're controlled.
Oh, absolutely. And it keeps us, we've had the conversation so many times, Sev, how it keeps us in a state of discombobulation, not only personally, but as a society. The infrared ultraviolet concept of us versus them, the tribalism of things. And we have definitely followed that rabbit hole here in America over the last many years of an us versus them mentality. And even right now amongst the UFO UAP community to see some of the us versus them mentality that's going on, like the crazy people that are threatening NASA scientists just before a NASA panel and emailing them and harassing them and, oh, you've been hiding this for years. It's like, that's funny. I've been a NASA scientist for 5 years. What do you mean I've been a part of this lie my whole life? Like, no, that's not the case. And they even addressed that at the beginning of their panel. The fact of like, hey, emailing scientists and harassing them about being involved with the topic doesn't help get scientists involved with the topic.
Well, that's what Avi Loeb was saying.
Yeah.
Because Avi Loeb was a speaker here yesterday, and he was saying that he gets a lot of criticism from fellow scientists.
I will bet he does. And once
he's a threat.
Oh, yeah.
Them.
Yeah. Most definitely.
He thinks it various reasons, one being jealousy, and the other, those scientists may be thinking that he's going to outdo them, and then maybe they're not going to be as important as they think they are, or maybe all the work they're doing is wrong. And it just keeps going. That is
the source of a lot of it, Sev, is the fact of people with commas and letters behind their name have written books. They've contributed to curricula, all this. And it's the fact that they're entrenched professors. What's the last 20 years of my career? If this proves all of that wrong.
Right.
If
But
this-
isn't that what being a scientist is all about?
exactly what the NASA panel said.
You have
exactly.
to change your mind
And
as a scientist.
I have said it for so long on this show. I don't think I would ever pay for 95 to 97% of a wall. Because there's a 3 to 5% ratio of anomaly. Science is only looking at what they've already proved. So you're
Yeah.
giving me 75% of a wall, dude. Like, I paid you for a full wall. You're telling me that 95% is a full wall.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Well,
think
that's a good way to
I don't
put it.
think I would have passed chemistry with a 5% remainder in the equation. Did it go to gas, solid, solution? What happened to it?
Oh, you're
what
bringing
happened
back
to it?
memories.
You know,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have passed chemistry, Sev. It wouldn't have happened because we couldn't prove the 3 to 5% remainder. and that's exactly what, I forget the nice lady scientist who said it, but she was like, we have been woefully disregarding our duties as scientists. Our duties as scientists is not to continue proving the known quantitative. It is to find out what that 3 to 5% remainder is.
And that was a lady.
Yeah. Oh, it was beautiful. It was beautiful to watch. Like, oh, my heart just burst open when I heard it. It was like, thank you, God. Because quite literally, even the concept of Grush in his testimony, using the idea of NHI,
Yeah.
it expands the definition.
I could not believe he
It-
said that. I was
It was
cheering.
beautiful.
I was so happy.
It was so beautiful.
I was,
Same.
So,
Same.
in case
Why were you
people
so
don't
happy,
know what
Sev?
we're
Please.
talking about in the recent congressional hearing, Grush, the whistleblower, and there was a Congresswoman Luna from Florida
Yep.
who asked him, "Why do you use NHI instead of ET?" NHI, non-human intelligence.
Yeah.
And he said, well, because I just want to remain open-minded about where these beings are from, because maybe they're not off-planet. Maybe they live in another dimension that we don't know about, and they're on planet, and they're bilocating. And my head exploded. I was like, I cannot believe he just
I
said
literally
that
jumped
to
up and cheered.
Congress
I
and to the
literally
world.
jumped up and clapped in my living room by myself.
It was amazing.
It was
so
beautiful.
I thought, okay, people are going to be talking about this. This is going to be big. No one said a word. I feel like I'm the only one that talks about
The
it.
only word I've heard is people who were ticked off that he didn't use the term extraterrestrial. Literally. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
people
they exist
people who are
too.
seeing
I mean,
it.
he's
Oh,
not
sure.
denying
Oh,
their
no.
existence.
No, what he's doing is opening a beautiful portal of investigation and exploration on the topic.
Unbelievable.
Because as soon as you say ET, no different than using, and we've had the conversation before, using the word UFO out of context. No, let's leave it to exactly what that definition. It is an object in the sky flying that you don't know what it is.
Right.
We don't have to immediately jump to it being alien.
Right.
We don't. That is unscientific to immediately jump to it being
Yes, it
alien.
is.
And by him taking that NHI term and pulling it out of the box opens up a whole new panoply of investigation, whole new panoply of science to look at, because as soon as you say we're looking at aliens, you've put the topic inside of a box no different than every scientist who said it wasn't science.
Right. Right.
You've just put it
Guilty of
inside
the
of a
very same
container.
thing,
You're
yes.
guilty of the exact same thing. You have diminutized what we can look at and how we can study it. Because now it only has to be alien.
Yeah, and he completely...
He blew the doors
Oh.
off that. It was awesome because, yeah,
So
I have
now I'm
held...
waiting to hear more about
I have
that.
held for the longest time that, yes, much like the work of extratemporal model, that is exactly what this book is about, is the idea that in the model, Dr. Masters posits that UFOs and aliens are our future human descendants coming back through time to visit and study their own hominin evolutionary past. Absolutely. Totally a possibility. Could utterly
Sure.
be us come back and
Why
see
not?
what we did to jack things up and how can we fix it. It could be us from a parallel Earth. All of these are still extraterrestrial. They are still outside of this Earth. So they still fit inside of the extraterrestrial definition. Unfortunately, our minds have taken extraterrestrial to the point of Kleenex and Xerox, where everything in a box that you wipe stuff down with is a Kleenex. No, it's a
Yeah,
tissue. It's
right.
this, it's that. It's for different purposes.
Yeah.
It's not just called a Kleenex. And we've been
Right.
using UFO and extraterrestrial as Kleenex for way too
That's a
long.
very good point.
Way too long. It's become a catch-all bin, and unfortunately that has stymied a lot of the science with it being a catch-all bin, because how can you get a niche scientist? How can you get somebody involved in this field if it's just a catch-all? You know?
Right. It's hard. It's a battle, and a lot of people don't want to engage in that battle.
Yeah.
Like what Avi Loeb is doing, he's in a battle.
Oh,
and
God, I want to interview that man so bad. Because even the idea of a Muamua being just a passing probe.
That was
once
brave.
again,
That
it
was
doesn't
brave to say
have to
that.
be a critter in a machine. It could be a probe that goes by and gathering stuff. Is that any less intelligent than any one of our automated drones?
Yes. Right.
You know? No, absolutely not. We use automated drones to go get information all the time on this
but
planet.
our drones look like, child's play compared to Oumuamua.
Oumuamua was very much like, it looked just like a big rock.
Yeah.
And, the funny thing is, you don't need things to be aerodynamic to float in zero gravity in space. There's no air for resistance. So, yeah, if you want a Borg cube to fly through the air in space, you could do it. There's no drag. There's no drag. So the odd shape and everything else, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That could be just what it looks like after years and years. That could be what it was constructed for in that way to begin with, so that it doesn't attract attention. One of the interesting concepts I came across at the Remote Viewing Association conference, a very, very well-known remote viewer, was telling me that, yes, there is a reverse engineering program, absolutely, but it's not necessarily what we think. It's the fact that the Greys, being the hive mind that they are, have evolved themselves past the point of emotion.
Why do you say hive mind?
Well, because that tends to be a lot of the story that you hear is that
they're robotic?
That they're kind of
I know, but bees are amazing and hives are glorious.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. In that search for their own perfection, they genetically engineered out creativity, individuality, things like that, to be part of that hive mind. This is my task. This is what I accomplish. I am a drone bee. I go out and I do this.
Okay.
That's what I do.
Okay. Along with that, there is a belief that there's different types of Greys.
Oh, sure.
Tall, medium, and short.
Absolutely.
The tall with the most sentience,
Absolutely.
and the little one being the robotic one, which is the one you're talking
Yes.
about. Okay.
Exactly. And the idea is that because of this, they have this amazing realm of technology, but they have no more creativity, Sev. So they don't know how to future apply their technology. They don't know how to make something new out of it.
The Greys?
Yeah.
Oh,
the
I
little
don't
Greys.
know. I don't know about the little Greys.
The little
are just
Greys.
robots.
Well, but that's just
So
it.
the tall Greys have sentience to them.
Sure.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
maybe they know what they're doing.
Sure. But it was an interesting concept, the idea of they are using us and our creativity to help them find new application for their technology.
Yes, that's
because they have engineered themselves to this point of a perfect race where they don't need competition, they don't need creativity. It's
And they told
not
me,
what they're about.
They told me the reason the hybridization program is going on with the humans and the Greys is because the Greys did lose their ability to be sympathetic and empathetic.
Yeah, and let's get into the hybridization program real quick. We haven't really touched on that this episode, and I really should have, because I think there was somebody here that I interviewed that touch pointed on that in their presentation. Let's get into the concept of seeding society and seeding humanity with alien.
Okay, so I had a remarkable experience in Roswell a few years ago with my ex-partner. It was a shared experience. And I was given information about the hybridization program. A few years prior to that, I had an experience where I was shown a baby in a tube, floating in a tube.
Wow.
It was floating towards the top of the tube, and I was in this dark room, and I'm looking at this tube. Felt like it was glowing, and the baby's eyes were open, and they were the bluest eyes I have ever seen in my life. And I knew it was a boy, even though I couldn't see that physically. And I sensed behind me something. So I turned around, and there were 3 grays, tall, medium, and short. And they were really nice. And they said, oh, take your time. We're just going to stay back here. Just don't be in a hurry. So I turned back around, and I'm looking at this baby, and I'm very confused. I felt nothing for the baby. I'm like, what is going on? And then, ding, I find myself in my room. So in Roswell, had this experience, made contact. They reminded me of that baby in the tube, and then they gave me information about the hybridization program. And they said that millions of people are involved, and they have billions of embryos, and they're picking humans, for the most part, that are empathetic, sympathetic, wear their heart on their sleeve, and have strong psychic abilities. And these embryos will be used to reseed the earth if we annihilate ourselves. And they said, we're on that path, but it's not destined. This was a few years ago. They said, you're on that path, but you can change things. Now I'm wondering, is it too late? With what's happening with the Maui. What's going on in Maui just hurts me so much. I can't. Maui is my most favorite place on earth. And Maui is considered the heart chakra of the world.
Yeah.
And it's on fire.
Yeah.
And even though people think, and I don't know, maybe it could be true. I have no theories. They're saying it was intentionally done and all that. But we cannot ignore the fact that Maui was dry. Now, how on earth can Maui, a lush island in the middle of the ocean, be dry?
Be drought dry.
And that's because of us.
Yeah. Well, and also very much so. A lot of the areas that caught fire were invasive grasses that were brought in for decoration, things like that aren't used to living on a volcano.
So
aren't used to that kind of climate, things like that. So yeah.
Other information that was given to an experiencer, she was shown an oil rig, and she was told every time you take oil out of earth, you are taking her blood.
Yep.
And she needs her blood.
That's interesting because I've been trying to find, and I'm trying to remember the researcher's name, but a long time ago, there was a full-on hypothesis to the fact that oil is a full-on renewable resource. Not that we should be burning it, but that it's like the blood of the earth. That's like saying that when you take a quart of blood from me, that I'm not going to make a quart of blood.
Right.
And it is interesting to see. There was a scientific article that was just released a couple weeks ago that I posted where apparently our draw of groundwater from certain parts of the earth has changed the spin of the earth. Things like that. And granted,
the damage we're doing.
We are going through a massive change in the solar system to begin with. Polar ice caps on Mars are melting, things like that. There's a crazy solar cycle that we've never recorded burgeoning on us as we speak. But we definitely contribute to those cycles, and we have a full-on chance to stop that contribution.
Well, there's energy to everything.
Absolutely.
And so the energy of Earth radiates out into the cosmos, and it affects the other planets, the other star systems, the other beings there.
Sure.
And so we're like the bad boys of the galaxy. We're the troublemakers. We're the bad kids.
Why do we have to be the class clowns, Sev?
Yeah.
The distraction to ourselves and others.
Because we're in denial of the truth. As long as we do that, we're going to be troublemakers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how do we begin that shift?
It's
Sev?
begun.
And I believe it's begun as well.
MUFON, these symposiums, Drush, even Congress is part of the awakening, believe it or not.
Oh, no, absolutely. And that is what I have been telling everybody who's been vehemently against and thinks that it's some sort of plot, all of it. It's like, man, the important thing is the conversation that has been opened.
Are you talking about some people thinking there are no ETs, there are no spaceships, they're making it up to try and deflect our attention from something else that's going on right now?
Yeah. That and even the idea of Project Bluebeam. There's never been a document found about Project Bluebeam or anything like that, but there has been floated for a long time the idea of Project Bluebeam, and that they will use technology, holograms, things like that, to full-on fake an alien invasion, which will catalyze the religious right, thinking that it's the end of the world, and bring about a whole means of control. A whole means of, well, we gotta get a wrangle on this, folks.
Yeah, like a staged invasion that's gonna go bad.
Yeah, and lead a bunch of people down a rabbit hole, believing that something's happening that's not.
Exactly.
To cause a conflict.
A huge lie.
To cause a conflict that will let them be able to tie everything down and go, well, looks like we need to bootlace this up, folks.
Yeah, now we're going to go into another war with the cosmos.
Yeah, and that's been floated for a long time. I even had somebody...
Yeah.
I'll tell you off air, but I had somebody very, very deep involved with the UFO field many years ago. It was right up around the time that I asked you to come on the show the first time, Sev. About 5-6 years ago, that told me they no longer come on shows. They no longer do public appearances and speak. Too many of their friends have vanished or been hurt mysteriously. They fear for their family. And they fear for the fact that Project Bluebeam is alive and well, and that is where things are leading. This was 5 years ago, and that has stuck with me since. And I watch and I look, and I see some things happening that are pretty close. You know, and could very easily precipice us to that point if we, as the populace at large, are not careful, and if we don't open our minds and our hearts to the truth and the reality. You know, a lot of people could very easily be led down that razor's edge, sadly.
Yeah, well, I don't want to go backwards.
Me neither.
I'm hoping we don't go backwards.
Me neither. I hope we take huge, big leaps forward, like giant moon-sized leaps.
And you're part of that. Your show.
Thank you. Thank you, Sev. That means a lot to me. Even being here and being a part of this community in the way that I am a part of this community means a lot to me, because I like being able to, as you know, demystify things. I like to be able to have hard conversations that a lot of people don't like to have. So many people want to softball pitch these things or take it down their turn of what they believe. I try to remove my personal belief from it and look at it from all facets of the gym.
That's wonderful.
You know, which is what we have to do. It's kind of like being in debate class. You got to be willing to accept the argument of the person on the other side of the debate to strengthen your own argument. Like we said earlier, to bring it back to the beginning of the conversation, it's the fact of this either steals your faith in something or it steals it. It either makes it firmer or it takes it away from you when the experience happens. And it takes a lot for you to keep that faith, for you to keep positive about things. And, you know, MUFON is there to help, folks. That is exactly what people like Sev are here for. That is exactly what the Experiencer Resource Team is here for. Once again, to be that non-judgmental ear to the experiencer. And I want to thank you for all of the work that you do.
Thank you.
I know I've told you for so long, but you are one of the most amazing advocates that MUFON could have.
Oh, my goodness.
It is so beautiful to see somebody with your experiences and the experiences you've had, the changes you've had in your life, to be able to come to experiencers and lead them down that road. It's beautiful, and thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Absolutely, and always let everybody know where they can go to keep up with your work, where they can go to take your workshops, because you do amazing spiritual workshops, things like that. Let them, shameless self-promotion time as always, Sev.
Well, I have a book, You Have the Right to Talk to Aliens, which is on Amazon, and my website is planetsev.com, and I'm on YouTube, Alien Spirit, and Facebook and Instagram. I'm real easy to find.
Absolutely, and more than connectable. You, I don't think, even whenever I first contacted you, it was within a few minutes that you responded to me. You are more than affable when it comes to connecting with people and talking with people about their experience. So thank you once again for everything that you do, Sev.
Pleasure.
While you are online checking out everything from Sev Tok at her website as well as at MUFON.com. Make sure to stop on by CuriousRealm.com. That is where you can go to find all the episodes to like, follow, subscribe, share. That is where you can go to find our links to MUFON. That's where you can go and find our experiencer form as well. If you have been an experiencer of the paranormal, ETs, UFOs, let us know your experience. Give us your evidence. We will present it to our experts like Sev and get you some answers. Stay tuned through this commercial break, folks. We will be right back with our final bit of coverage from MUFON Symposium 2023 in Covington, Kentucky, right after this. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our final bit of coverage here with the Curious Realm at MUFON Symposium 2023. We have with us our new guest and good friend, Mindy Topfest. She is the author of Dying to Meet Them, a story of near-death experience that led to UFO experience. How have you been doing?
Doing good. I've been having a great time here at the symposium.
Tell us a few of the things that you got to sit in on and check out. I know you were part of the state directors meeting because you're actively the state director for Oklahoma. So how did that go?
I actually I spoke there about the MUFON University that we're launching here in the next couple of weeks. We finally have everything together.
A couple weeks? It's that close?
Yes, it's that close. We'll be using our new Form 30 where we actually work our UFO investigation. So we've completely reworked that to include things that we can do now, our new capabilities to be able to check flight radar and to be able to check the media reports and everything. Yeah. That's right at our fingertips now, where it wasn't whenever MUFON was initially formed back in 69. So now we're bringing it up to current standards, and now with the university, we're teaching to that new form and incorporating all of that and teaching new people how to look up that kind of information and document it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I myself have quite a few things for my backyard astronomy, things like that, where I can track the sun and the moon back Lord knows how far. I can just put in a date, and it'll show me where the position of the sun and moon was on that day where I'm at. Pretty cool stuff.
Well, and it's helpful for people that are having active sightings. So if you see something in the sky, you can bring up these apps. You can go to Weather Underground. You can go to Heavens Above. You can go to any kind of satellite
Google Sky Map, what have you.
Yes, exactly. And rule out just right on the spot. Oh, okay, well, that's flight number whatever. Or, well, that's actually Betelgeuse that's twinkling at me. And then it helps cut down the false identifications and really zeroes in on the truly strange and anomalous.
Yeah, precisely. Because that's kind of one of the things that I do whenever I go to a targeted individual's house, things like that. The first thing they always want is frequencies. And my first thing is always, let's pull out the gas meter.
Right.
Let's pull out the radon detector. Let's start getting rid of known quantitatives until we leave the anomaly, and now we will investigate that.
That's exactly it. That's why you're going to be a great MUFON investigator.
I'm hoping to be a member of the STAR team. We'll see if we make it that far.
Definitely.
I've definitely got a lot of toys that I can bring to the table, let's just say. But let's get into that a little bit. How does somebody go about becoming a MUFON investigator?
Well, they become a member. Membership's about $60 a year for a basic membership, and they have other levels. You can be enhanced. So if you get the enhanced membership, you get access to MUFON television and all the great stuff that Ron James is doing over there. And I believe the symposium would be up on there, too.
Yeah, I was going to say, you get copies of the symposium feed, all the speeches, everything else. Somebody was just asking me about how to access that earlier.
I'm going to be accessing that when I get home. I haven't had a chance really to sit in on any of the speakers. So.
And that's what I was asking you and Sev about the other day. Like, hey, if you want to come on and tell us a little bit behind the scenes, what else went on behind doors? Because frequently I'm out here gathering interviews and chasing people, and I frequently don't get to step inside the doors. I'll step in the back and check out 5-10 minutes of something while I'm waiting for a speaker and then come back. So that I had a chance to at least hear everybody talk a little, especially if I have them on the show. But, I don't, like whenever I'm doing Texas Bigfoot Conference, like I'm on the other side of the wall, man. I don't get to hear all the talks.
I know. Isn't it awful? And then we go home, and then we spend another, several hours being able to actually listen to everybody we've been talking to behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it because I know our Oklahoma State meeting this month will actually focus on the symposium and highlighting the different speakers and everything. So I always enjoy going back and reviewing and taking notes and being able to share that even with a greater audience through our Oklahoma meeting.
I really can't wait to hear the entire presentation from Avi Loeb. I got to hear part of it.
Yes.
And it was awesome. It was fantastic. And to hear his opinions on what's going on right now are
absolutely
really
well,
really
and some of the senators that joined us and all the exciting things that are going on within the government right now and all the things that MUFON's doing with the government right now with briefing them and the things that A10 is bringing to the table. I mean, we've got some exciting things going on.
It's remarkable, some of the exciting things going on, and a lot of the strides that have been made just over the last couple years. Like we mentioned earlier, that not many people realize that a lot of the questions that came in that first Senate panel were curated from MUFON cases, were curated from MUFON questions for the scientists.
And Dave is working his tail off. He's back and forth to D.C. all the time and briefing them and sharing information that we have here of what we've been seeing and coming into our database and just some of the history that needs clarification. And so these guys are listening and they're bringing that to the table. To the greater Congress and everything to bring that to the public. So I know that some people were not so happy with the recent hearings and stuff, but it's going to be baby steps. We're getting there.
Yeah. I challenge them this. Feel free to go watch more congressional hearings on other things, and I guarantee you'll be much more ticked about those than you are about this.
Yes, yes.
Because this is amazing and awesome that it even hit the floor of Congress to begin with.
Right.
Period.
Well, and I'll tell you, we have been seeing a surge in membership since then. And you had asked about becoming a field investigator. So if someone wants to be a field investigator, we need field investigators because the cases are many and the workers are few.
Yeah.
Even with 600 around the world, we are still being overloaded.
Poor Thiago. I had him on earlier, and I was like, you are the sole contact in Brazil?
I know.
One of the largest swaths of sightings in the world. I was like, I will pray for you daily, Thiago.
I'll tell you.
The daunting task in front of you.
One of the really cool things that came out of behind the doors meetings for the state director meeting with MUFON University, we are going to be able to, we're looking into right now, feeding in a software where all of that will now be translated into any language. And so
awesome.
If you're in Brazil, if you're in China, we'll have Spanish, we'll have Mandarin, we'll have, French Canadian.
Yeah.
And the French are really kind of heading that up because there's a big translation problem there. But once we can break down that barrier, we're going to open it up to the world where it doesn't matter what language you speak. You'll be able to research UFOs for MUFON. And, we'll be getting more of those sightings.
That's fantastic.
Every month we get sightings reports, and we get the numbers for, where they're coming in. And it's always, a ton of them from America. But it's not reflective of what's really happening out there.
Yeah.
And we will be moving into where we're getting a much greater idea of what's happening worldwide.
Exactly.
So,
and there are so many things out there right now. So many communities doing things, contributing to this knowledge. I was telling you the other night, I got a MADAR system at home to find magnetic anomalies in my area, all kinds of things. The one thing I am really excited to see happen is the day that y'all release AI into the realm of the database. The day y'all start incorporating AI to cull through this since 1969 field of data, the things that are going to pop up, Mindy, are going to be crazy.
Yes.
The trends that are going to pop up are going to change things. They're going to change things, absolutely.
And one of the things that you might have heard them speak about was this whole Mars project that's being launched and all of the databases that we are combining. I believe NICAP is giving over 100,000 cases or so. And by the time they're done, we have archives from mega researchers that we're going to be adding in all of their files and just libraries. There's going to be almost 1 million cases that are going to be within the MUFON archives under the Mars project. So that's a huge thing that they're working on right now.
That is massive. That is a massive amount of data to call through.
Oh, yeah.
And a beautiful amount of data to call through.
I know. And combine that with the power of AI.
Yeah. Yeah, and once again, as we've said so many times on this show during this symposium, the fact of reports confirm reports. It's never too late to give your report.
Absolutely.
Your report may confirm what 2 or 3 other people said 20 years ago.
Yes.
You know, and that is important for trending, for catching all kinds of information that is hugely important.
Absolutely.
So it's never too late to give your report.
I actually ran into that with there across Oklahoma in the central U.S. during 1965. There was a huge flap that happened from July 31st to August 2nd, and I was researching it and speaking with my mother about it, and she actually had a sighting that summer. During 1965, her and my aunt were outside, and they saw a craft at treetop level, and this was during an outbreak of thousands of sightings there in that region within that 3-day period. And so just to even learn from within my own family of a new sighting that she's telling me about that confirms all of this that was going on at that time. So you're absolutely right. Any little bit of information helps, and it helps to confirm what was seen, when it was seen, who was seeing it, where.
What was seen, and it's all hugely important to trim the pieces of the puzzle together. You know, to find out where they fit. And with that in mind, how has the relationship between Arrow and MUFON been?
That's an interesting question. That'd be more one aimed for a A10. Yeah, I've been more on the behind-the-scenes stuff, working with the university and the training and stuff. But, you know, now that the university is being launched, I might have some free time to direct to other things. So.
Yeah, it's been great to see Arrow come about, and to see at least it's funny to me whenever I hear people saying like we finally have a unified way to report. It's like no, we've had a unified way to report for a long time.
Yes, we have.
These other people are just catching up to having a unified way of reporting.
Yeah,
like MUFON has been around since '69. There has been a unified way to report something.
Yeah,
even NICAP has a pretty unified way to submit a report.
Yeah.
You know, and that is hugely important, the process of how things are reported, why things are reported.
Right.
And the follow-up that happens and the splitting off of cases to different teams, things like that, whether it's a STAR team or an ERT team going to visit somebody. It's
and
it's
that's one of the great things, even like within the last 5 years or so, just seeing the growth within MUFON and being able to utilize some of these new technologies and really looking at the different aspects of the phenomena to be able to, you know, cater to the different types of experiencers. So, you know, a normal field investigator can look at a light in the sky, but someone who's had multiple abductions and might be struggling with that, they can go to the ERT and they can find community there and support. And with the STAR team, I mean, those are our most advanced investigators, and these are the ones that are going to be responding to crash sites, landing sites, and things like that. And we can collect evidence and send it off to our lab.
How frequent? And I love the fact that there is now officially a MUFON lab.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, that makes my heart sing so much.
Yeah.
At what point does something get turned over to the STAR team? At what point do you send people out to start gathering physical evidence?
Well, STAR team actually kind of had gone defunct. That was something that came up whenever we were working with Bigelow. And now Dave just announced here at the symposium that we will be relaunching the STAR team. And so we'll have to see how all that unfolds. I know there's still discussions about how exactly that's going to work within the framework. I think it's going to change a little bit from the way that it was set up before.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see within the next year how that unfolds. But I'm excited that the STAR team's coming back.
I am excited to hear that as well, because it's such an important facet of the gem of research. You've got to be able to go out and, especially the fact of being able to examine the evidence yourself.
Right.
Being able to keep it in-house, make sure it doesn't get lost, make sure it doesn't get miscategorized, thrown on a shelf somewhere.
Yep.
Forgotten about. Documents end up getting corrupted in transit, what have you.
Kudos needs to be paid to Missouri MUFON, because Debbie Ziegelmeyer and Lynn Mann, who's our chief analyst, they have put their own money into that. They have built that thing up from the ground, and they are doing incredible work there. Terry lygne-kehl, my good friend, she's about to go on pretty soon, and she'll be speaking about how the lab assisted in her own case in analyzing the DNA that she collected from a reptilian she encountered that actually healed her. And so Lynn's done things all from DNA sequencing. She's working on 2 big cattle mutilation cases from Oklahoma right now, and she's been able to prove amazing things with that. We know that this was not any kind of predator. It's not human-generated.
Somebody searching for sweetmeats or something like that in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And we just recently had a couple of cases in Texas that popped up over in the East Texas area, and I thought it was funny that the sheriffs eventually went to social media.
Yeah, before they got shut down by the FBI.
To look for help. Yeah. Their investigation was fully shut down.
Yes.
It was interesting to see that.
Yeah, and the Oklahoma cases happened right at the same time, and for whatever reason they didn't cross the border.
And to hear David Paulides the other night talking about craft tracking food sources, watching food sources, watching our interaction with food sources, it's pretty interesting to dig into.
Yeah, that can get dark pretty quick.
Very meaty and dark topic. It's kind of scary to think how much there is to dig into.
Yes.
Because there's a lot. There's a lot. And once again, it's one of those, is the Park Service fully aware or covering up? Because there's some weird cases going on and some wild stuff. And to see that, yes, the cattle mutilations recently, those investigations were randomly just shut down.
Yeah. Well, when does the FBI get involved?
Yeah.
And I mean, the ranchers there went quiet. I mean, they weren't talking after that happened.
Yeah, I actively have some pictures that one of my listeners sent me from the Texas cases. I'll show them to you after.
Okay,
Pretty detailed, pretty wild stuff.
I'd like to compare it to the one that I responded to there in Oklahoma.
Exactly, because the similarities, once again, to see that kind of stuff. And I mean, Linda Moulton Howe has been pioneering that work since I know of.
Yeah, she actually weighed in on the Oklahoma case. She had contacted me, and so did Christopher O'Brien, and both of them have been so wonderful to work with and, lead me along and saying, hey, make sure to check for this or that, because they're the best in the field.
Yeah.
And they were so excited that MUFON is now stepping up and analyzing the cattle mutilations and stuff. Both of them sent me copies of their books. They both sent me, Linda sent me both of her videos, and I can't give them enough kudos and thanks for all of their assistance with our case here.
She has been hip deep in the world of cattle mutilation since the 70s.
You can't beat her.
There is nobody that knows more about the topic.
Yeah.
And it's a strange topic when you start rabbit holing into it.
It is.
Some of the things that are there, some of the situations that have happened. It's really wild.
It is, wild. And I think that it'll be a while before the government comes forward with that.
Were there any sighting cases or encounter cases tying together with the mutilations in Oklahoma?
Not really. The rancher themselves had seen a couple of things around that area prior, but it was the same rancher that got hit twice. And it was a really strange case because the first cow was a Holstein that got mutilated, and we responded within a few hours, went and got samples and everything. And the next day she texted me and said, "You're not going to believe this. The udders are gone." And the udders had been removed, same way that the cheek flesh had been removed, and the tongue and the eye, and the rectum being cored out. And so I had her put a trail cam on it and watch it. And that next night there was a fog that kind of settled over that cow. So she went ahead and buried it a couple days later. And then within 5-6 days she contacts me again. "You're not going to believe this. There's another one." And this one was a mini zebu bull that had been... She found dead. She had seen it 20 minutes before. And by the time she discovered it, they heard 2 large crack sounds right outside their window. And they found it about 30 feet outside of their house. And it already had rigor. The legs were already stiff.
Wow.
And there was no mutilation on this. And so we weren't quite sure what exactly had happened to it until she went to move it. And whenever she moved it, both of the horns fell. So they had broken off at the base of the skull, and she has a video where she was just, rolling them around. And our lab analyst was able to calculate that it would have had to been dropped from 300 feet in order for both of those horns to break off the way that they did.
Yeah. Because that is a hard mineralized bone.
Yes. And one might break off from time to time, just as part of the natural process. But the way that they were cracked off there right at the base, and they were still within the skin socket,
Well, even the fact of deer, anything like that, they shed their horns.
Yes.
But it takes something different to break a deer antler.
Right. Exactly.
It takes a totally different amount of force than when they naturally shed. Same thing with bull horns or anything like that. So,
so it's a different process. And, you can see the fracture pattern. And so, like I said, it's still in the lab right now. But Lynn has been able to tell that, yes, this was cut using an instrument that, it's not a medical grade instrument. This is something other. And it has very definite signs of it on the flesh that we had removed and sent off to
cauterizing and things like that.
Yes.
Man. So entirely incredible and wild. It's remarkable to me the number of cases like that there are out there, and the number of reports that there are out there that, like you said, do get buried by media. They do get buried by law enforcement, specifically the FBI, which is just strange.
Well, and the government's not even beginning to breach it, I mean, right now we're still talking about lights in the sky, and I guess Grush is bringing forward that, yes, there are biologics. So we're getting there. Eventually the cattle mutilation will be entering the stage as well. But it may be a while before we actually hear any talk of it in Congress.
Yeah, well, I think we have to get people to the point of accepting UFO-UAP to begin with.
Right.
Before we can dig the hole deeper. Let's make sure that we've curated a ramp.
Right. Well, I guess you got to go in layers of freak out ability because there's something that's physical craft.
Yeah.
Okay, now there are things piloting the craft, and here's what the things piloting the craft are doing.
It's just the fact of if you don't build a ramp out of the hole, then you're just pushing people down a hole of very deep information instead of slowly
like the
bringing them
frog,
down. Exactly. You're not going to throw a frog into a pot of hot water; he'll jump right out.
Yep.
And that's very much the mentality that we're coming up against right now with the idea of cognitive dissonance taking over with some people, that they have been told for so long that this is not, and that it can't be.
But it's interesting.
And now,
do you get on TikTok?
I am
love
not
TikTok.
yet.
TikTok is my
and
guilty
I've been told
pleasure.
I need to get on UFO TikTok and UFO Twitter.
You do.
That is where it's at.
Twitter, whatever. TikTok. You've got to get on there. So my children are 16 and 14. So I'm the hip mom. I'm on there. I'm not making videos. I tried a couple of them, and they weren't that great, and I took them down.
Not the flosser.
No, I didn't do it. But on TikTok, they're reaching this whole new generation, and it's funny to see their reaction to the hearings and everything, and they're like, "Yeah, aliens are real." But none of them, you're tired. I know. We stayed up too late for several nights. It's okay. I was yawning so bad earlier too. We're almost there. We're
on the
couple
home
more
stretch.
hours, man.
Home stretch.
We'll go
Mindy.
home and take a good nap. But on TikTok, these younger generation, they're not worried about it. They're worried about paying their bills. They're like, yeah, aliens are real. Okay, move on.
Yeah, we got bigger things to worry about.
We can't buy houses and, all of the things that are affecting our younger generations right now. I mean, from the millennials on. And it's a very different reaction than we see from like the baby boomer and older generations, which, I mean, there's very good people within the baby. I mean, Terry's my favorite person.
Yeah.
But
well, there was definitely, especially when you're looking at late 40s, early 50s, you're still very much talking about media entrenchment with the military.
Yeah, Project Grudge, and I mean, they did a darn good job.
Absolutely. Even looking to things like Operation Mockingbird, stuff like that, having operatives embedded in the media,
right?
To push paradigm and to push stories. It's always been funny to me how in, what was it, not 2012, but it was the last NDAA that President Obama signed on his way out, included funding for the Office of Anti-Propaganda Propaganda.
Oh, my goodness.
It's like, why don't you just call it a propaganda office, dude? Anti-propaganda is still propaganda.
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
But it's there, and it's funded, and it's an actual office.
Yeah.
It's an actual thing. So,
I
it's
get
like
hired.
we are still, I keep waiting for the day
the anti-propaganda stuff,
when the regime happens, believe me, I will have a job.
Yeah.
They will recruit me for my AV skills immediately.
Absolutely, you're the best.
Come into the machine. But yeah, it's one of those, the didactic of conversation going on. I regularly bring up the fact whenever people are like, "Oh, crop circles are fake." Well, maybe a lot of modern crop circles, but you know what they weren't busy doing in the 1500s? Destroying half a crop of wheat.
Yeah,
like they were worried about not dying from the Black Plague.
Yeah,
and paying their bills to the king.
You know what's funny? Were you able to sit
so
in
we're right
last
back.
night?
We're right back
yes,
to that part of the conversation.
Were you? Were you able to sit in on Accidental Truth? Have you been able to see it yet?
I've been able to see part of it. Yeah, on MUFON TV. Everything else.
We were in there watching it last night, and Michio Kaku, he had quoted someone else. So I'm going to quote Michio quoting someone else, but I love it, and I'm holding on to this. And it said, "Those who say don't know." And those who know don't say.
Yeah,
exactly.
Precisely. And, it is still very much I laugh all the time, especially going to the Remote Viewing Association, things like that. So many people that I've met and now personally know involved in, the Stargate project, things like that, the government remote viewing program. And people like Hal Puthoff, who, when I asked him for an interview last year, he was like, I'd love to come on your show, but I'm read on to so many topics, it's hard for me to talk sometimes on a show.
I bet so.
And it's absolutely true. Because
now, can I say that? Or
well, it's the fact of once you're read on to certain topics, they keep you read on so that you can never talk about that topic that you were talking about 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
They keep you read into these communities so that does keep pushed down, so that that research does stay in the background until it's ready to come out. So there are still those active campaigns of keeping people read on, even though they're like 70-something years old and fully retired from their full-time work.
Yeah. That's one of the great things that's coming out of the hearing.
Read on as a consultant.
Yes,
so
but
that
Grush now is naming names behind the doors, and
there was a lot of talk about Skiff. There was a lot of talk about we step into a private soundproof room, you'd be surprised the things I tell you.
Yep.
And that has been my conversation with people who even are non-believers on my show. The fact of, are you down with accountability?
Right.
Because that's the base question, and that's what we're getting to right now, is if we can follow that money trail.
That's it.
If we can follow the money trail that Grush is talking about, then we can get to the SAPs and the back doors of the SAPs.
Well, I'm hearing talk of subpoenas now. Let's see.
It would be epic. Unfortunately, from what I understand, what was the good senator's name who was heading up, very young senator who was heading up the Grush hearing? He has apparently been removed from the panel. The one who was saying, we will enact the Monroe Act. We will revoke your funding. If we come to your doorstep and you don't give us answers, we're going to hold you responsible. Like, he's apparently not on the panel.
Well, you can see
anymore.
what they're up against, you know?
Yeah,
I think
precisely.
that there are two factions right now we're seeing battle it out on the public stage. And
it's great to see so many young faces from
is.
the Senate involved with it.
It is.
Because it means that, A, the folks that have been entrenched in this topic for a long time and read onto things, A, are moving out. New people are moving in.
That's it. I think people our generation are just tired of it. You know, let's get rid of the secrecy.
Sick of it.
You know, this affects all of humanity.
Absolutely.
Let's talk openly and move on to a new era.
Precisely.
We're done with it.
Precisely. And I want to thank you for, A, the conversations privately and on screen.
Yeah.
It's been great. It's been heart and eye-opening to me. And it's fantastic just to be here, be able to speak with experiencers from two different tables like you who do see that these worlds are merging. These sciences and these researches are merging. And it's really exciting and remarkable to see that they're almost all running in the same vein now, and it's only a matter of time until these others are addressed. You know, even like we were talking about privately, the fact that the Bigelow Institute is backing research into near-death studies, things like that. Like,
pretty interesting.
Those dudes find some answers.
I noticed that looking, you know, from the UFO to the NDE.
Yeah,
follow the money, and
Yep.
you'll see there's some kind of connection there that not just myself is seeing.
That's it. That's it. Well, before we let you go, look there at the camera. Let everybody know where they can go to get your copy of Dying to Meet Them, your story of NDE to UFO Experiencer, and where they can go to find out more about MUFON Field Investigation and MUFON University.
Yeah, you can go to MUFON.com to sign up to be a member, and if you want to be a field investigator, you can go and sign on, contact the state director, and they will lead you down that path. It's a little bit involved, but we'll get you through it, and we need great field investigators. Everyone has something to offer.
That's right.
As far as me, I sold out all my books the first day, so I guess I'll have to bring more for next symposium.
That's right.
You can find my book on Amazon.com. It's called Dying to Meet Them, and my name is Mindy Totfest. You can visit my website, mindytotfest.com, and I have a link there on there as well, and some of the information about MUFON.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time at the end of this very busy MUFON Symposium.
I know.
I know you have been stacked and stacked and stacked with responsibilities here, so I greatly thank you for the time on air.
Well, thank you for the time off air.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've become a great friend, and I appreciate you, Chris.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that, Mindy. While you are online checking out all of the amazing work and buying your copy of Dying to Meet Them by Mindy Totfest at mindytotfest.com, make sure to stop on by CuriousRealm.com. That's where you can find our bookstore full of books from all of our guests. That's where you can find tools to investigate the paranormal, all kinds of things. CuriousRealm.com/store will get you there. You can also go to CuriousRealm.com for all of the episodes, all of our social media, like, follow, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, folks. We will be right back after our commercial break here with our final few minutes of coverage, wrapping up MUFON Symposium 2023 right here in Covington, Kentucky after this. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our final bit of coverage here from MUFON Symposium 2023 in Covington, Kentucky. Our final guest is Dr. Michael P. Masters. He is the author of Identified Flying Objects, as well as Revelation, The Future Human Past, and my favorite title, The Extratempestrial Model, which is the one that I want to talk about, because for so long, even before Grush hit the scene, one of the things that I have been talking about for the longest time is if we keep the conversation of UFOs in the box of alien, we've done it no more justice than the scientists who've said, but it lives in this box.
Yeah.
And to dismiss the fact of, could it possibly be us from the future? Could it possibly be us from a parallel Earth? Could it possibly be us from a parallel dimension? there are numerous options. And to see the recent whistleblower hearings where they used the term non-human intelligence and really took it out of that box, it was fantastic to see the panoply be opened of possibilities.
Well, kind of. They sort of did the opposite, too, by calling it non-human intelligence. Cause,
Yeah.
like I told you, it's a 3-letter word to me. Because, yeah, they might be human.
They could be.
You know?
They could absolutely be us.
And if it was always my beef with the term extraterrestrial, too, because it pigeonholes the lexicon.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously people then think, well, it must be aliens. At least we've gotten away from that, you know. But, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of non-human intelligence. My friend Darren King, exo-academian, he calls them neo-humans.
Okay.
Or non-current humans. You know,
Okay.
'cause I've come to understand that at least some of the phenomenon is, in fact, us from the future, you know.
Okay.
I don't think it explains all of it.
Sure.
It's highly variable. There's clearly a lot of other things going on, but some component of it is future humans. So, yeah, non-human intelligence, sure, it's a new buzzword, but
it, as you said, still it expands the box. But it's still a box.
Yeah, no, it's good. The box is getting bigger.
Yeah.
Even if it's not, you know, the way or at the pace I would like to see it, but it is expanding.
Well,
you know.
and there have definitely been stories of government experimentation with time travel, all kinds of things. So, where did you first start finding evidence of some of these craft being humans from the future?
Well, I guess that was when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
I had sort of what I've come to understand was a conscious precognitive moment where I looked up at Willie Strieber's book Communion, saw that alien, you know, classic gray alien form, and visualized a picture of a chimpanzee-like early hominin form and a modern human in the middle, and then this alien form, which I put in here in the first chapter, I believe. There it is. Here. Whoa.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was that kind of started the ball rolling. Obviously, as an 8-year-old, I don't have much context as far as evolutionary anatomy and the physics of time and time travel, but it was enough to pique my curiosity, and I just dove straight down that rabbit hole.
And eventually led to this. Now, what did you study as your course of study for doctorate?
Right. So I started out in physics and astronomy.
Okay.
For obvious reasons, the craft are interesting unto themselves. But then I thought it might be better to pursue the question more in the context of the beings. So I switched to biological anthropology. My main focus of study was in human evolutionary anatomy, biomedicine.
Okay.
And I focused on, quite by chance, it was cool how it worked out, or, you know, worked out on purpose, I don't know. The evolution of our craniofacial anatomy, with a focus on the eye orbits, which are right in between an expanding brain and a retracting face.
Yeah.
So it really gave me a good ability to understand how they might be us, you know, based on these long-term evolutionary trends of increased encephalization. We have more globular neurocrania. It's expanded mediolaterally. Our faces have become reduced and retracted. And if you extend those traits forward that dominate the last 6 to 8 million years of human evolution, we're going to look like the damn aliens. You know?
Eventually, especially if you start looking at any technologies to begin living elsewhere, even on our own planet. When you're talking about possibly heading underwater, possibly heading to deep areas of the Earth, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, people say that a lot. You know, if we lived in space or if we lived underground or something. I didn't get into that in my book because there's no way of knowing.
Yeah, that's very speculative.
Yeah, but what I focus on is the dominance of these trends, regardless of where we lived on this planet, our social or political systems. Those same characteristics of our craniofacial anatomy still occurred, and they accelerated.
Yeah, and they aren't going to change as we evolve.
I don't see why it would. No, and I came across an article the other day in an academic publication showing that a brain size 3 times our current size is the most efficient. So, you know, if our brains do continue to get larger, you know, we'll reach that place where we unlock further potential, I guess. And
Absolutely.
they would be larger. You know, we would expect that because it is a trend that dominates the whole course of our evolution. So,
Yeah. And at the point of it being future and future coming back to visit, why would they be coming back, Mike?
Well, I mean, with acknowledging my own biases regarding studying the past, that's what we do as anthropologists. You know, we're left with the fossilized skeletal remains and the dentition of our ancestors, and we can learn things from that, but not nearly as much as if we could pick up living ancestors.
Sure.
And that's seemingly what they do. They do the same thing I would do as a biological anthropologist if I had access to a time machine. So yeah, I think part of it's research. I think they're also monitoring the environment, and there's something about our genetics that is paramount as well. That's the most ubiquitous thing, is they take sperm and egg.
Yeah, sperm, egg, blood, things like that are full-on genetic material all the way around.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I was about a month out from publishing my first book in 2019, and I came across Jim Peniston's account.
Yeah.
And he says they're time travelers. You know, he touched the craft, received the binary code. A lot of your listeners are probably familiar with that. And, in hypnotic regression, he divulged that they were having problems with reproduction, and they were coming back to get chromosomes, DNA, from past people to help with that. It was cool to see that. A very different source for a very different reason, saying the same thing. So I highlighted that in my second book, The Extratempestrial Model, as an important case to consider. But I also, talked about other cases that don't neatly fit with this model, because we, need to look at the whole picture. So it sort of examines other theories and how different cases might fit in different places.
Yeah, absolutely. And it very necessary to be able to look at things from, like you said, an anthropological point of view, not just experientially, but genetically, things like that. Because there have, of course, been cases of sightings going back thousands of years. And to know that these stories have been in our humanity and continue to come into our humanity really does raise that question of, are they coming back to garner some kind of information to take back to the future, if that's the case?
Yeah, and we would expect people in these different times to conceptualize them differently.
Yeah.
I think it's the origin of a lot of myths, cave paintings. It probably had a lot to do with the ubiquity of cranial modification, intentional cranial modification. I think it inspired numerous religions and belief systems, origin myths. I've
actively been working on kind of an anthropological album that is going through cave drawings and rock art that specifically feature these kind of things. And whenever you look at them, there are very specific tribal patterns that are repeated all over the world. That, as a musician and audio engineer, dude, that is a sine wave.
Yeah.
That's a saw wave. That's a square wave. And I've always wondered if perhaps the people who were making this art were synesthetic and are actively drawing the sounds that they heard in the environment around them.
That's cool. I never thought about that. Makes a lot of sense, though.
It does. It makes a lot of sense for why the same tribal pattern in Australia, why the same tribal pattern in America, why the same tribal pattern in Europe.
And you know what? Also, in relation to that, before TV and everything else that we have to distract us from the world around us, like music, dancing, song was so integral to the cultures of traditional peoples that they didn't even have a word for it.
Yeah.
It was just a part of everyday life, art and music. So, they were probably more tapped into that than we are.
And one of the first technologies that we actively used when you're looking at things like epidaurus, when you're looking at structures like what are on Malta that when you chant in them, actively resonate in theta waves.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. You know, things that our brains actively produce to put us into dreamlike states. Stuff like that. So even Stonehenge has been shown to be reflective surfaces to amplify sound.
Oh, cool.
You know, that certain frequencies resonate more in that circle of stones than other frequencies. So,
yeah, we got the what's that place outside of Palm Springs? The Integratron.
yeah,
that's like people go there for
man, I want to go there
meditation
so
and
bad.
The sound bowl things,
Yeah.
whatever. That's
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
You know what really blows my mind? I don't know why this just popped in my head. If you put the speed of light into Google Earth, do you know where the speed of light is
No.
geographically? It's the freaking pyramids of Giza.
Wow. Now, I had heard the fact that it was the speed of light was calculated within the actual.
I mean, if you just
I
put it
guess,
in as coordinates, you know, GPS coordinates, it
Wow.
drops you right at the Pyramid of Giza. How
Interesting.
crazy is that?
And I've got a hypothesis with that, just because I make a lot of binaural beat music. And the whole concept behind binaural beats is the idea that one frequency goes in the left ear, one frequency goes in the right. Your brain finds the third frequency, which is the target frequency. So if you're wanting to meditate on 425 hertz, you'd put 425 or 424 here, 426 here, and your brain makes 425 with the
420,
wobble.
420 here, too.
Yeah. And the idea of there being two different length, just slightly different length shafts going to the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid with baffles that control air. It's like, I've always wondered if perhaps that is a binaural beat chamber that is actively used
Maybe.
for the wind passing by to just the same way you can whistle in a straw and turn it into a slide whistle, adjusting the length. Put certain frequencies into that chamber to resonate the granite and
Could
put
be.
us into different states. So all kinds of technology that we as humanity have totally forgotten about, Doctor. One of the things I bring up all the time is you would be hard-pressed to go out right now with a 6x6 plank of wood and ask somebody to hand carve you a spiral column.
True.
That is very recently lost to our society.
Yeah, a lot of those skills.
And to think that it took aliens to build the pyramids.
Well, I don't know if I'm on board with that.
Me neither, because I think it really subtracts from the ingenuity of humanity. We had people like Archimedes and stuff like that were making
Da
automatons.
Vinci.
Yeah. You know, we are an ingenious, brilliant species who can calculate and do amazing things with an abacus.
And it's not that complex, you know, like
Not
what
really.
structure will hold up a pyramid?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Bigger on the bottom, smaller on the top.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason that happened everywhere throughout the world
And
at the
there's
same time.
thousands of hypotheses as to why the pyramids were built, what they were used for. For me, the question comes down to, could we do it? I believe we could. We've yet to
Absolutely.
be able to fully replicate it on scale, but that doesn't mean it was impossible.
No, one thing I learned is that they used water, you know, to make sure, because water's always flat. So they used that to make sure that the stones were perfectly flat.
And we have a researcher that comes onto our show pretty regularly, Stephen Myers out there. Hey, Stephen, from the Pharaoh's Pump Foundation. And his whole hypothesis is the fact that they actively dammed and redirected part of the water into the Giza Plateau, flooded it, and like a lock system. And so, because why would you float the bricks all the way down just to drag them across the dirt?
Just keep floating them.
Just keep floating them, and then reduce the water level or raise it as you
I'd
build
never
the
heard that.
structure.
Makes a lot of sense.
You know, but to float them in, pop them in place, flood it some more. Now you're up to the next level, and just wash, rinse, repeat. Build the retaining wall higher, hold more water, build the structure.
That's
It
cool.
it explains some of the erosion that's there on the Giza Plateau. Things like the Great Sphinx, stuff like that have very clear erosion lines around them.
That's interesting.
So it's a very interesting hypothesis. But once again, the idea that we wouldn't be able to do it, I think is very insulting to us
Yeah, it
as
is.
humans. And to think once again that every one of these craft that is coming in has to be alien is once again, I think, distracting from the fact that many of them could be us from the future trying to fix
it
a
makes
problem.
the box too small.
Yeah, precisely. And
Well, I also would claim that, you know, like I said earlier, I don't think this is the only explanation either. You know, I think that would make the box also unnecessarily small to say they're only future humans, because there's probably a lot of other things going on. And I've come to wonder if they're all these theories are part of the same thing. You know, I gave a talk in Phoenix a couple months ago where I laid out how the crypto-terrestrial, ultra-terrestrial, even ET, interdimensional time travel, how they all could be part of the same thing if you do interject time as the common thread that runs through them.
Well, and especially the fact of, unfortunately, we put so many things in a box, Dr. Masters, that we've forgotten that we gave time its bounds.
Yeah.
We did.
We did.
We invented that.
Yeah.
That's not a universal thing. That is specific to us here.
Yeah. It's limiting as well.
Very limiting,
you know?
very limiting. And when we look at the modern realm of physics, when we look at quantum physics as it's being studied right now, my gosh, we are learning that, yes, parallel dimensions exist. We are learning that we are much more likely to be living in a sud bowl of a universe than a single expanding bubble.
Yeah.
And those things open up a realm of possibilities to know that what we process sensory-wise as human beings is 350 nanometers of an entire spectrum.
Yeah, that's
350 nanometers. And we're learning to shift those things right now. I mean, just in the last 2 years, we have created matter from light. Like, you may as well say, replicator, make me a coffee.
Yeah.
You know, like, we have made amazing progress in science and technology just in the last few years that is remarkable.
Yeah, it is. And you know, fast forward that.
Yeah.
What's the future going to look like?
Yeah, precisely. One of the videos that we show regularly on the show is the actual branded Skunkworks video of their nuclear department, showing this gentleman who's probably about in his early 30s in front of a nuclear reactor about the size of a walk-in freezer in a restaurant in his lab.
That's crazy.
And he's talking about this reactor and this technology and how, yeah, you know, we can 3-4 generation this every year. When I'm done with this project and this reactor is to the size that we need it to be, I'll have to find a new job. That's how fast and rapid this will be. That was released in 2012, and just this last year, Lockheed Martin released their patent for a nuclear reactor that fits inside of an F-16. So
he was right. He's out of a job now.
Yep. Opens up a whole new realm of technology and possibilities when people are like, well, to do that and to warp light, you'd need the power of a nuclear reactor. It's like, well, we got it.
There you go.
And it's very portable.
It fits in your pocket.
It's very portable.
Yeah.
So imagine where it will be 30, 40, 50 years from now. Look at where we've come.
Yeah, totally.
Just in 30, 40, 50 years. I'm 48. I remember going to look things up on microfiche and finding out it was not in my library.
Same.
You know? Now we don't have to go anywhere further than our phone.
Nobody even has
to find all of it.
encyclopedias anymore.
I know.
I spent a lot of time with our encyclopedia.
I had
catalog.
Numerous encyclopedia sets as a kid, and I lived in them. Lived in them.
It.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
which is great, especially as an author.
It's fantastic.
You know? Or recording audiobooks. Like, I need to know how to pronounce a word.
Yeah.
Just Google it.
Exactly. And I mean, all of that came from researchers, came from people like Caltech saying, we need to talk to MIT now. We need to be able to real-time share data. That is where all of that came.
I think Al Gore did it,
well, yeah, of course. He was the genius behind it.
Everybody claims to have invented the internet. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
There's like at least 20 people that claim they invented the internet.
But in all reality,
I want to go on record right now saying it was me, actually.
It was you?
I invented the internet.
Well, I could believe that, especially if you have access to time travel.
Right, that's true.
But in all sincerity, looking at the concept of time travel, looking at the science behind time travel, how likely are we, Dr. Masters?
Very.
Very.
Yeah. I cite a couple literary reviews, research articles, Ehrman et al., where he did a vast review of all pro and con theories about backward time travel and found that there's nothing in the laws of physics that prohibits it. So like you're saying, if nothing does, you know, with the speed at which we're learning and doing and creating, we're bound to figure it out. So I would say 100% probability.
Yeah, precisely. And that brings up just a panoply and slew of questions about probability and new universes, new realities, branches, all kinds of things. And
information, transmission.
And where we're living amongst all of that. Mm-hmm. Because if they did go back, did that change the reality around us? Did that bring us to a new reality that we aren't even aware of yet?
Yeah,
all
I mean, I think even just being aware of their presence in our times forces change. You know, like I was talking about religions and belief systems, like just even observing them.
Yeah.
Is like, whoa, there's something else going on in this reality, you know, and then you have to ask questions, and that's why we're all here.
Exactly.
You know, is to try to figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then is there any direct transmission of information? And then, yeah, you got to ask more questions about how that impacted our species, in what way, where.
Through your research, have you found any direct transmission of information? Have you found any stories of people communicating with folks from the future?
Tons.
Things like that?
Tons.
Give us a couple of examples if you can.
Well, I mean, that's the second book, really, is, you know, people that interact with these extraterrestrials, as I call them, these visitors, these others. And, yeah, there's obviously the common element. I talked about this in my lecture yesterday of take care of the earth, take care of the earth. You know, a lot of people are shown images of missiles, war, nuclear war especially, environmental calamities. So, yeah, that's direct communication of information that is either a warning about something that's going to happen or some attempt at trying to avoid it.
Yeah.
And I talk about how that could be interpreted in the context of the block universe versus the multi-world, many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, and how, you know, it might play in with each of those, if it's an avoidance thing or a warning about something that's bound to happen, because if they are from our future, they already know what's going to happen.
Can they warn us? Or is it the Doc Brown situation of don't open this letter, tear it up?
That's the thing, is if it's in block universe model, then they can't change anything.
Yeah.
But if they had always warned us, and we do avert something, and they always warn us, and we always avert it, there is no change. You know, it's just a self-consistent situation of a future cause and a past effect, you know, which is, it happens all the time.
Sure.
With time travel. There is no differentiation. According to Igor Novikov, there's no differentiation between past, present, and future in the context of a time machine. You can have a future cause and a past effect, but because of our brains that limit our perception of time and force it into a linear situation, because we have to understand the world we live in. Yeah. We evolved to live in this world. It challenges our notions of causality, but there is no paradox.
Yeah, yeah,
that's
precisely.
what a lot of people don't understand. I hear this all the time. It's like, well, we can't go back in time because then there's paradox. I'm like, well, there's not. If you know, in the block universe model, everything's consistent. You just go back in time and do the thing you always done, and that already exists before you ever go to do it. Yeah. You know, because it's in your past, relatively. But then as you live those moments and going to the past, you're just enacting the thing that you'd always done. It doesn't change anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And God, man, once again, just a panoply of questions and ideas start swarming through my head when I think about those things, because I recently went to the Remote Viewing Association conference, and
Where
I loved
that.
That was in Charlottesville, Virginia this year, right near the Monroe Institute.
That's cool. I had a buddy that went last year.
I was there last year. Yeah, it was in Menlo Park last year for their 50th anniversary near...
You know Greg Bishop?
Yes, I do.
That was Greg.
Yes, I do.
He stopped. I was at Esalen.
Too cool.
And he stopped at Esalen just to say hi, but he was on his way up there.
I know Greg. We were connected via social media, things
Greg's,
like that. Great, fantastic guy. And when you're talking about past, present, future, all at the same time, the first thing that pops into my head is non-local intelligence, non-local consciousness, and the ideas that were put forth by Hal Puthoff, Russell Targ so many years ago, and the ideas of remote viewing and the fact of we are all interconnected. You know, even the concept that just won the Nobel Prize this last year of quantum entanglement. The idea that particles can influence each other despite distance.
Yeah, faster than light even.
And exactly. And the idea that means we could influence particles in the future. That means we could influence particles in the past, and kind of how the whole precognition thing happens. I say it all the time, that field has more people with letters and commas behind their name, and it is wild to see some of their research into precognition.
Well, speaking
things
of
like that.
Actually, to bring the two together,
Please.
Eric Wargo wrote a book called Time Loops, argues that there's a good chance that remote viewing is just precognition because they need that final target. They don't want to work without it. And how much are they just conveying that target back to their prior self?
Yeah.
And then they just know that information before they have access to it. Another thing related to that, which is kind of crazy, Joe McMoneagle in his book, The Human Time Machine, which I read a week after my second book came out. I would have loved to have put this in there. Toward the end, like page 127 or something, he, is talking about remote viewing the future. That's what the whole book's about.
Yep.
And says by the mid 21st century, so this century, we will come to understand that UFOs are, for lack of a better word, time machines.
Yes.
I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Joe McMoneagle just said that
Straight
he
out.
remote viewed the future
Straight out.
and UFOs are time machines. I was like, well, that's cool.
Yeah. And that was a very bold proclamation when it came
He's
out.
probably
I remember
right.
Still is.
He's probably right. I don't think it's going to be that long before we know that.
I don't think it will be either, especially with some of a lot of the talk in Congress, things like that, trying to find the roots of programs, trying to track down the money line and what special access projects it went to. I think we will have an answer on things in pretty short order as far as the timeline of
seems like it
when this problem and quandary really started for us.
Yeah, I mean, John Ramirez is saying 2027, and Lou Elizondo said something like that. That's right around the corner.
I had Steve Bassett on all of a month or so ago. He said by the end of summer we would have a big disclosure moment. That would be incredible. Yeah. So I'm watching the fashions to see when people stop wearing white, and it's the official end of summer. That's when I'll start looking.
That's gonna happen. Don't get your hopes up. A lot of people have been saying stuff.
I'm not holding my breath, believe me. Yeah. But it would be exciting, and it is an exciting time.
It already is exciting.
Exactly.
I mean, this is potentially one of the coolest times to be alive.
It is. It is one of the coolest times to be alive. I love it. I love research like this. Thank you so much for coming on, taking the time to talk about this deep topic. I'd love to have you on a longer episode where we can really dig into things, because this is such a rabbit hole of a concept and such a theoretical side of things that really makes so much sense. It makes so much sense when you start looking at stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty logical. It's got the fewest assumptions, principle of parsimony, Occam's razor type things. So.
Exactly. Well, let everybody know, Dr. Masters, where they can go to get your books, where they can go to follow your work, where they can go to find out more.
Well, I mean, I got a website. It's kind of a hub for all of those things you just mentioned. It's just my name, michaelpmasters.com. Okay. I should probably know my own URL, huh?
You should. It helps the shameless self-promotion.
Yeah, it does. This is how often I shameless self-promote. I don't even know my own damn website. No, I think it's michaelpmasters.com, but if that doesn't work, just Google it.
Well, and, folks, if you can't find that, you can always find curiousrealm.com/store. That is where we carry all of the books and materials from all of our guests. We will make sure to add these into the store over the next week so that people have easy, quick access to it. Thank you so much for this amazing realm of research and fantastic, beautifully refreshing view on this topic, because I think we have far too labored the singular point of these phenomena, and to open the concept up, to open the research up, is going to be a huge step forward. It's going to be fantastic.
Well, it's already happened. I mean, Grush ain't using the word extraterrestrial.
Nope. Exactly. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Masters.
Yeah, great talking to you.
Absolutely. Same. while you are online checking out all of the work from Dr. Michael P. Masters, everybody make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can find all of the episodes. That's where you can find our guest books in the store. That's where you can like, follow, subscribe, come and check out our YouTube channel, all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for everybody for tuning in. Stay tuned through commercial break. We will be right back with our continuing coverage of MUFON Symposium 2023 from Covington, Kentucky, right after this.
Bye.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to our final bit of coverage here at MUFON Symposium 2023. We have had a great 3 days of conference. There were tons of presentations on not only experiences, but research. There was an entire first day of field investigator trainings, state meetings, all kinds of stuff. How have you enjoyed your second MUFON Symposium, Amy? You were kind of a sideline watcher in a lot of the communities that I belong to, being my wife and being a show listener, things like that. But what has it been like for you to come in, specifically experience this community over the last couple of years?
The MUFON community and the people that are here at the festival are just a very sweet group, very kind, open, supportive, even to the point where in instances when people aren't supportive, people rally together to be like, no.
Yeah.
You've got to be nice. You got to be helpful. And I was just talking to somebody, I was just talking to a couple of gentlemen. We were talking about how both I and they had encountered different people during the festival who were very nervous about sharing their information, and they were worried about how it would affect them, and how both I and they had reassured them no, this is a great place to do it. It's a great place to connect.
This is the exact place to do it.
You are supported. You are just taken care of. These are the people who will listen to you and honor what you have to say and not judge you. And so I was nice that, both I got a chance to tell somebody who needed to hear that, and then these other people that I was chatting with were like, yes, that is what this community is about. I do see that. I am part of that situation. Everybody seems to be, there's sort of two groups, people who have experienced and then the people who support them, and they're together here. And there are some people who are so deeply involved and interested that have never experienced and are even though I haven't had the blessing of being able to experience what this is, I want to be there. I believe them. I support them.
Yeah.
And then also the people who are experiencing, who either at the beginning of their journey when they're not sure how to react to it, or if they're later on in their journey and they're like, hey, you're not alone. I've had this. I can be there for you too. So it's been a really great thing. Everyone that I've met has been very sweet, very excited. They're also very excited about this. When I tell them about the podcast, oh, cool, great, that sounds fun. Oh, do you guys go to these a lot? Oh, yeah, we're in the community. We spend time, and they're just like, oh, this is so cool. So very, very happy, supportive crowd, and even the people who are a little reticent are still supportive, but they're just held back in their own way.
Yeah, a little standoffish in their shyness about either involvement or experience. And that's understandable.
That's okay.
It can take some time to get comfortable with these topics, and with even having open table conversations with people at lunch and things like that. So to see people like we did at dinner the other night, the first night at the awards ceremony, that we were at a table of all first-time conference folk. A couple of people had just joined MUFON, things like that. So and one person wasn't even a member of MUFON. Yeah, they were here because they heard about it, and it was cool. Just so you know, you don't have to be a member of MUFON to come to the symposium, folks.
You don't.
It is open to the public. You are able to come You do have to be a member to be a field investigator and go to that training and that kind of stuff. There are a couple things that are MUFON exclusive. But aside from that, like, anybody can come to the conference. It is open to the public.
Absolutely. And to speak of the MUFON exclusivity with reference to being a field investigator, that is just an example of the way in which they are on point with being getting as much info as they can, as making sure that the info that they're getting is like legit and follows investigative rules and whatnot. Like, it's not that they're like, we can do this and you can't. They're like, okay, you can do it, but you need to go through the training so that you know how to do it in the most efficient way possible, in the way that makes sure that you honor receiving all of the information, receiving all of the evidence, and logging it and putting it away. Because at the end of the day, a lot of what this community is about is collecting data and putting it together and seeing how things match up. Oh, it looks like this area at this time, there were a lot of sightings. Oh, this happened. Even to the point where the person that I spoke to earlier, who was like nervous about sharing their story, I said, if nothing else, it might just tell you, they might be able to tell you that other people had similar experiences at the same time in the same location. And then you are relieved from this burden of the idea that you're alone. That you've made this up, that this is
it's a singular experience.
In our records here, sir, it turns out that the date and time and location that you're mentioning, there's a lot of stuff that happened. You don't know, but because MUFON collects everything and keeps it organized, they're able to help put those things together and put people at ease by saying factual evidence proves that stuff like that happened around that time.
That is absolutely correct. And that's what is utmost important, is the process of evidentiary gathering and how you call and sort that information. No different than if there was a murder and the police started getting phone calls from 89 copycats saying that they were the murderer.
Sure.
There is a process by which you collect and call that data to find fact from fiction and sort clue from non-clue, and that is a lot of the evidentiary process that they follow. There's a reason why it does not stay in the hands of one field investigator. Why after a certain point it gets split off to either an experiencer resource team or a more experienced field investigator to double check the work, or to the work of the STAR team, which we were just talking about with Mindy, that's being rebooted as far as collecting physical data, collecting soil samples, radiography, things like that, radio signals in the area. That is to help preserve the evidentiary chain and to make sure that the person who gathers that data isn't the same person that does the interview. Because at that point you could have the person who's doing the interview utterly look at the other evidence wrong. Look at it in a sense of not being objective because they've been so entrenched in the investigation for so long. So bringing in outside parties to come in and take over that side of it, hugely important, massively important. And to know that all of this is done via volunteer. There is nobody on staff as far as payment, salary, anything like that with MUFON. Everybody is volunteer, and that is a beautiful, beautiful thing when you're talking about accountability of data, when you're talking about how the data is culled to make sure it isn't culled in the interest of somebody who's a major investor.
Yeah.
To make sure that it can culled in the interest of the guy who's getting a bonus next year. That kind of stuff. That is hugely, hugely important to keeping it dispassionate and keeping it objective. So kudos to them for that and for maintaining that since 1969. They have been in operation since then in the way that they are. And that's amazing. And they've changed some investigative techniques, added new stuff, all that. But they have maintained the same intake, everything else since then. So they really have a massive, massive field of data to pull from. It's fantastic. And I'm just glad to be able to be here, be able to sponsor an event like this, to know that this is how I can contribute, that I can help get the word out about MUFON, their mission, what they do, the research they do, the researchers that are here presenting. That's my mission. That's my contribution, aside from being a monetary sponsor, aside from being a lifetime benefactor and member of MUFON. If you were able to do that, folks, believe it or not, it is more important than you could ever believe. I say it on the show all the time. I could probably put my money behind a local political candidate. I believe in this more. I believe in this more than that broken and defunct system. So this is where my money goes, to the furtherance of mankind as a whole. That's where I stand on it. I want to thank you for supporting me in this show.
Oh, yeah.
Always, sweetheart.
Absolutely.
It has been a mission of passion.
Definitely.
So.
And this is a passion for them as well. Like,
yeah.
Speaking of their like excitement and it's just a very good group. They're on point, scientific, very official. They're like working very hard to make it like legit and whatnot. Now, but the other thing that I wanted to mention, the other part of the festival that we don't think about, we don't really talk about, but everyone wants to know, when you come to the MUFON Symposium, is it fun? Do you get to make friends with people? Do I get to talk to the speakers? Yeah, you do. There was so much social action afterwards. Everyone was hanging out in the lobby of the hotels. There's two hotels next to each other, and everybody was like at one or the other. People were meeting different people. They were meeting speakers, and they're
presenters
not like,
just down there having a drink with attendees.
Yeah,
it's not like they were compartmentalized off.
Absolutely, everyone was sitting to dinner together. I mean, last night Chris and I went to dinner, and then we went into the lobby. We met up with some of our friends that were there, and I thought that they were there with their other friends, and the table was like half people that had never met each other and half people that were like friends for many years. And I just loved the way everyone was mixing together, and like they were like, as people were leaving, they'd be like, nice to meet you. And I was like, you don't know that person forever? Like, they were just everyone was so friendly.
Common
and like,
base.
You know, everyone, it was like they were hanging out with their big group of friends. And then it turned out that it was like half the people were strangers to each other. And I was like, what? This is amazing.
Yeah.
And like the fact that we get to like go talk to the speakers, like really get to talk to them, and not in a like, and don't get me wrong, going up and talking to them at their table and getting the book signed, do that. Buy their book, get it signed, talk to them right after their talk, tell them how good they were, always good. But later, everyone's hanging out, everyone's a little more relaxed. You know, you see the speaker, he's finished dinner, he's sitting, he's having a drink, chatting with his friend. You can have a real conversation, and you can really connect with people. And because we were there last year and again this year, it's like we got to see people that we recognize. Like I saw a couple today that we met last year, and they were like, hey, I was like, oh my God, you're here again. Like, so fun. Yeah. Like just the aspect of it is, and don't get me wrong, clearly Chris and I are gregarious. We have no problem walking up to strangers. Like, I get that not everyone's like that, but just find a pal like us. In fact, there was a girl who was like, hey, you seem very friendly. How do I make friends? And I was like, let me tell you how to do it. You know, so we're all both here to find out cool information, to know that the organization that we're supporting is like legit and serious and cares, but also we want to make friends and we want to like socialize, and all of those things were met for me this weekend. Good. Such fun stuff. Even though I went to bed early sometimes, I stayed out sometimes, you know, party. They're just so fun. We had a good time. Yeah,
but that's what it's about. It's about connecting with people, connecting with the stories, connecting with the research. And MUFON does a great job with that. I want to thank you for coming with me again this year, sweetheart. I want to thank all of you for coming with me on the journey for the last many years, from our original incarnation to now, to these hard topics and conversations that we have, everything from human trafficking to, you know, female mutilation to cattle mutilation to UFOs, UAPs, ancient civilizations. Your open hearts, your open minds are what change the world, folks. So take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Thank you so much for tuning in to our coverage of MUFON Symposium 2023 right here in Covington, Kentucky. Stay tuned, everybody. We will have much, much more live coverage coming soon from Texas Dogman Festival next weekend. So it's going to be a great one. Stay tuned for that. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And remember, stay curious. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Curious Realm. Stay tuned for more guests
forbidden topics, and hidden truths. Download the official Curious Realm app and view the Knowledge Vault on our website, curiousrealm.com. Follow us on social media by searching Curious Realm. Curious Realm is available on your favorite podcast services, as well as YouTube, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV through the APR TV app, available on all app markets. Curious Realm is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more great content or to become a sponsor of Curious Realm or other podcasts, visit hcuniversalnetwork.com today. Thanks for listening. Stay curious. And remember, the other side is always watching.